All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Montclair Planning Board. Notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, and it's done by providing a copy to be posted on the first floor of the municipal building. We also publish a copy in the newspaper designated by the township for notices. We also provide notice on the township website. Excuse me. The meeting will be broadcast on Channel 34 and stream live and available on demand on YouTube. We hold a quasi-judicial proceeding here, meaning that the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we're obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions therefrom in order to provide the basis of official action. And any questions or comments during the evening must be limited to those issues that the board can legally consider in reaching such decisions, and decorum appropriate for a courtroom is expected at all times. First thing on our agenda this evening is our roll call.
Vice Chair Brodock.
I'm here.
Mr. Graham.
Here.
Mr. Ianwali.
Here.
Ms. Lockman.
Here.
Mr. Ortiz.
Here.
Mr. Pierre.
Present.
Counselor Terry.
Here.
Ms. Willis is excused. Chair Wynn.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
And Mr. Neiman.
Here.
Okay, and we also have Mr. Neese here and Joseph Byrne, who is here because Peter Tenkate is on vacation this month.
Good for him.
Is that B-U-R-N?
B-Y-R-A.
Okay, we have our minutes from our January 8th meeting.
I received edits to the minutes from Ms. Lockman and Vice Chair Brodock. Are there any other changes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay.
We have a couple of resolutions. First, 509 Park Street, LLC.
Are there any changes to the resolution? I believe that, Keith, you had some comments.
I believe so, yes.
And the version of the resolution that I put in front of everybody is prior to Keith's changes. And they were not substantive changes, just scattered throughout. Are there any additional changes to the resolution?
I have a question, maybe a clarification. Where did it go? I can't find the resolution, but the section that talks about not being able to subdivide the lot, right? Forget what number it is, and I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
I have it, but I don't
12?
have that section right.
Is it 12?
12, about the condition.
Yeah, in the conditions. So my question is, if you're already subdividing the lots for the original building and then the lot to the south, and then you're leaving the lot to the north as a lot. And the question is, if you were to join the northern lot with the property next to it, that's not really, is that a subdivision, or that
That's a
can be
form of
considered a
subdivision.
subdivision? It's an independent lot as is.
Yeah.
But if you join it up with the north, I mean, it's not really, you're not dividing anything, you're adding to.
It still requires,
Okay.
subdivision approval.
Changing the property.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
So moved.
One quick thing,
One
Mr.
quick
Graham might have a
question.
question.
Okay.
I might have missed it. Did this protect the historic elements, the resolution?
Yes.
It did, right?
Yeah.
Which number was that? Read that.
7,
Perpetually.
on page 7.
I see it.
I added, in my edits where it says shall be preserved, I added and maintained.
That's
Before
right. Okay,
perpetually.
I recall. I believe I have to abstain because I voted against passage. Is that correct?
Say that again?
Do I have to vote, do I have to abstain from the resolution if I
never
voted?
voted.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yep, wait a minute, can I just ask, I'm looking now, I found it. I just want to make sure that it says here, as consented to by the applicant, neither of the two lots created by this minor subdivision application shall be further subdivided, and the subdivision deeds shall so note. Once again, those two lots are not being subdivided if you add them to whatever the number is, the northern lot, that's the big building that's, looks like it's in a derelict condition.
There is no north.
No, but I'm just concerned, that was a concern of the neighbors, that you're going to start a pattern of subdividing now. And if you took that lot and you added it to the northern lot, then that owner could go and apply for a subdivision, and that can't be done.
If they came here, this would, well, if you're saying that.
I think, Mr. Neese, your mic is not on.
Sorry.
No problem.
Let me be clear. There's one lot there now. They've subdivided that one lot into two lots, what you're calling the south lot and what I would call the north lot. You're suggesting that the property to the north of the north lot
Yes,
could combine with that lot,
yes.
in which case there would have to be another subdivision application before this board.
Right. But it's not prohibited from going before this board for a subdivision application if the owner of the northern lot were to buy the lot next to it. It could conceivably apply for permission to build whatever they want to build on it. If there's no prohibition, because you're not subdividing the northern lot of the 509 Park.
Well, one planning board can't bind another anyway. So the point is that if somebody were to come back years later and want to subdivide an already subdivided lot, the notes would reflect that we rejected that, but a future planning board would be free to do with it what it will.
But my point is, it's not a subdivision.
I don't disagree with you, but
Yeah.
what they're saying is legally they've
It
got to
is a
come back here.
subdivision?
But
Yeah.
the notes won't get in the way of a future planning board saying, go ahead and combine it with another.
I thought it was a deed restriction, that they couldn't do anything with the,
If it's a deed restriction.
well, I thought that's what we discussed, yeah.
They didn't consent
No,
to that.
they didn't agree to that.
They didn't say they were going to record it in the deed?
I thought they did. I
Yeah.
mean,
That was my recollection.
We were concerned with the subdivision, about the lot 509, about them making three lots out of that instead of
Yes.
two. So this stops them from making three lots out of
Yes.
two. But you're talking about something that's totally different,
Yes.
taking one of those newly created lots
Yes.
and combining it with something else,
Yes.
adjoining it.
I thought that was discussed at the meeting,
But that will be, if you do that, that would be making a giant lot.
which the owner could then go before whatever board.
No,
and
they'd
look-
have to, what you're saying is that they'd have to come in and combine it and then redivide it?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Why not?
I hear there's an asteroid that's got a 1 in 1750 chance of hitting
Okay,
the Earth.
all right, just,
I'm not getting
That's a-
excited
it just
about
says
it.
subdividing. It doesn't say adding to and then
But that's
whatever.
still a subdivision, even
Okay.
if
It's a
you are,
subdivision
even if you're
proceeding.
consolidating those lots and changing the subdivision lines,
Mhm.
it's a subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think you're covered because number 7 says, as agreed by the applicant, as consented to by the applicant, neither of the two lots created by this minor subdivision application shall be further subdivided, which includes being amalgamated to another or being subdivided, and the subdivision deed shall so note. So I think you're protected.
So it does say the deed, all right? I didn't
Yeah,
remember
it says the
that. Okay.
subdivision deed shall so note.
Yes.
So we just need to make sure that the language that gets into the deeds matches the intent.
And since I will be reviewing those deeds when they're prepared,
Right.
you can bet I'll be watching out for that.
Okay. So you made the motion, stands. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Alright. Okay, we have 81 Alexander Avenue.
And I don't believe we had,
Keith had you.
Keith, you had some comments on this one. I see. Right, and yours was the fact that the new building would be seen from Alexander Avenue.
Right, I believe that's what the testimony was from the applicant.
Well, if you
Well,
look
they
at.
said
I
the
think it was
original.
partially obscured by the building in the front.
They said, they definitely said, because I'd asked if you could see the current structure from the street, and they said you could, but it was obstructed. So maybe it was the second
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, I was thinking the new structure.
Oh, the new structure.
The new
Okay.
structure, I'd asked, will that be visible from the road? They said yes.
Oh, I don't recall that.
But it's pretty far back.
Yeah.
It was like 200
It's far
feet
back and
or
it's
so.
partially behind the
Yeah.
house, so.
Yeah.
But we can take that out, like the proposed new lot containing the existing structure, the new buildable lot will not be seen from Alexander Avenue, and even after construction is likely not to be seen. Maybe we should say the house on the new buildable lot shall be partially visible.
I mean, we can, I don't know what function it serves one way or
Then
the other.
just take the whole thing out, like you said. We don't really need
I
it.
mean, yeah, I was gonna say, is there a reason we need to acknowledge that? Or?
Yeah, so remove it. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain?
Okay, that brings us to our new business. We have two applications on.
I think we have 4 other resolutions for our board professionals, which I think, you know what, I probably,
You're not missing it, it's not on your version.
Okay, I'm looking at the version that's up on the digital version.
yeah,
So
they didn't amend it
Okay.
to include those board professionals. I really like to get those contracts going,
Would I?
as I'm sure you would. So we have a resolution to retain Beatty Padovano as board attorney for 2024. Is there a motion to approve that res?
So moved.
Just a point of clarification. I wasn't here for the executive session. Am I eligible to still vote on these?
Only if you like the guy.
Okay. Noted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you very much.
And we have a resolution to retain Eric Bernstein and Associates as Planning Board Conflict Attorney.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have a resolution, did I skip one? We have a resolution to retain Boswell Engineering to serve as the Planning Board Engineer for 2024.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
It's really rude. You come here one time and
And we have one more. We have a resolution to appoint Level G Associates to serve as Planning Board Parking Expert.
I'm on a roll. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Abstentions? All right, got it.
Okay. Now the applications. Mr. Tremulak, I understand that you represent both parties this evening?
I have both applications this evening, Mr. Chair.
I know we have them listed in a certain order on our agenda. I know there's been some discussion about how the second one's going to be presented, so I will leave it to you to decide who goes first.
Well, we like the Kush Connection application because I think, as you'll see in a few minutes, it's not going to take much time, as I'll explain. And discuss this with Janice and Mr. Needs earlier today.
Okay?
So, if we could.
I'm going to recuse myself from this. I have a working relationship with the Kush Connection, so I'll sit in the back for that one.
So for the record, good evening, everyone. Alan Tremulak, appearing on behalf of Kush Connection LLC. Kush Connection was granted one of the retail cannabis licenses from the township to operate out of building at 135 Valley Road. You might recall, I guess maybe a year or so ago, I had an application for another cannabis operator who was hopeful of getting this license to operate down the street at 151 Valley Road. The board approved that, but they were not granted the license from the town. But Kush Connection was. And again, with the intention, the license applies to 135 Valley Road. That's the subject of this application. We applied for conditional use approval and site plan approval. We are not ready to proceed with site plan approval tonight. We're still involved in revising the plans based upon comments we received from the Development Review Committee and other things that we're working on. However, we would like to go forward and ask that the board consider and approve our application for the conditional use permit only. And the reason we're requesting that rather than postpone the entire application, because obviously we can't operate until we get both approvals. The concern we have, and why we're asking for the board to basically bifurcate this application, is because my client has a conditional retail license from the state of New Jersey, which will expire in a couple of months if that license is not converted to a permanent or full license, whatever it's called. And in order to make that conversion and protect their state licensing, they need conditional use approval from this board. So that's why we're asking the board to hear us tonight on the conditional use. We'll come back, hopefully within the next month or two, for site plan approval. And, you know, the requirements for conditional use, as I think this board will recall from the two prior applications you've had, are pretty simple. There are essentially three requirements, unless Janice corrects me. One is that the establishment cannot operate as a home occupation. It cannot be housed in a vehicle or other movable or mobile structure. That's apparent since we're seeking to locate in the building at 135 Valley. And the third requirement is that the establishment not be closer than 250 feet from the primary entrance of a public or private school or child care center. Now, I think in order to establish that requirement, I'd like to call our project architect, Ryan Robertson from Sonus Architecture, for very brief testimony on that.
Can I ask how the bifurcated application works in this case? I mean, do we issue a resolution after this and then we just continue the hearing at a later date? How does that work?
Well, it would be basically two-phased application. This is common with zoning board applications where you apply for a use variance and then come back later to get your site plan approval. It's essentially what we're doing here. We're basically asking for the board to approve this, that this location meets the requirements for the conditional use, but the board resolution that would be adopted would confirm that, but would also include a condition that is subject to this board granting site plan approval. So we would not be able to operate from this location until we hopefully obtain site plan approval from this board, but this would protect our license with the state by getting the conditional use approval.
So as a point of order, do we need to make a motion to have this bifurcated thing go forward and have that motion be voted on? Or
We've never done that with any kind of, we've bifurcated matters before, and we've never done it by motion. It's just been, if the applicant presents a good enough issue, then, you know, we've allowed it to continue that way. Just like we would carry something from one meeting to another. I mean, it doesn't, if they don't come back to us, is there a time limit when we do this, that they have to come back to us with the site plan approval?
No.
So if they're not gonna come back to us with the site plan approval, it just dies. And if conditions have changed since we granted the first part, which these conditions are pretty minimal, so I really don't see that becoming an issue. You know, we could raise it if it would make a material difference in the second part of it, but, you know, I wouldn't anticipate that that would be a complication.
So I have a question. Is the conditional license, is it address specific?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you were to move to another address, no, you can't do
And the
that.
town license is specific
Okay.
to this location
Okay.
also.
Thank you.
Yes. And just by the way, I shared with Mr. Neese an email from my client's cannabis attorney explaining the time constraints and what I just tried to explain to the board. So he has that.
Do you have any objections to that becoming part of the record?
Not at all. No.
And that's the time constraint on them. It's not necessarily coming back to us, but they've got a clock running on trying to get the other elements in place in order to put this license together. So that's what's gonna limit the amount of time that either he's gonna proceed or will die.
Yeah.
My client spent a lot of money, and it costs them money every day. So they're very anxious to get this business opened as quickly as possible. There will certainly not be any intentional delay on our part, so.
All right.
Okay,
please
so
proceed.
Ryan Robertson, you need to be sworn.
Before we do that, if you don't mind, Mr. Robertson.
I pre-marked the exhibits,
Oh,
okay? A1 is the application, A2 is the certification of taxes paid, A3 is the proof of publication, A4 is the affidavit of service, A5 is the survey prepared by Richard Hingos, dated June 5th, 2023. A6 is the planning report dated November 1st, 2023. A7 is the site plan prepared by Sionis Architecture dated October 13th, 2023. A8 is the report from the Historic Preservation Commission dated November 9th, 2023. A9 is the report from Boswell Engineering dated November 29th, 2023. And A10 is the report from the Development Review Committee dated December 28th, 2023. So I think this would be A11. This is the email from Andy Sick.
yes.
And this is dated January 22nd, 2024.
Take a look at it, pass it down. Back to you.
No, just, can I ask Mr. Trembulak a question before we proceed?
Sure.
Yeah, so what if, we move ahead with this and the conditional licensing is okayed? What if the site plan then is not okayed? What happens?
We can't proceed without,
can't
site plan
proceed.
approval.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
we're in trouble.
Okay, thank you. But does the conditional license still stand, or no?
Well, the
Because-
license would become, unconditional, I guess, with the state, but I think there's also requirements going forward that they have to be up and running by a certain period of time. I don't know exactly what that is. But it'll protect the license, but not indefinitely. So-
Protects the license at that specific address, but,
Yes.
and if they,
Both the state license,
yeah,
So
they
If
can't
they're not,
move,
if they're not getting site plan approval at
Yeah.
that address,
Then they'd
for all
probably-
intents and purposes, it's dead.
then got to start over.
we'd have to come in with another location, which would have to be approved by the governing body and I believe the state as well, so.
Or find a way
Good
to
to
get
know.
this,
Thank you.
or find a way to get the site approved, if there's, if revising it or something that was possible.
We,
One step at a time.
we
I
anticipate.
just wanted to know the parameters.
Which is why
Yeah.
we're working on it, to get you something that we think is approvable, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ryan?
Again. Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Ryan Robertson with Cyanus Architecture, 8 Hillside Avenue, Montclair.
Ryan, I don't recall, have you testified before this board
I have.
previously? You have?
Yes.
Recently?
Yeah.
Okay, just very briefly, put on the record your qualifications, because you're,
Your mic's not on.
Sorry about that.
it's usually me. That's it.
That door opens,
I've
just
been
hit the
trained.
Mr. Robinson, I'm not going to have to swear you again, am I?
Why don't you provide the board with your, summary of your educational background and your professional qualifications, because you're also going to be testifying on the next application.
Sure.
So,
Graduated from North Dakota State University in 2003. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, in good standing, and I've testified before this board and several others in the area, and been accepted as a witness.
Can you?
Yes, I'll sit closer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think you mentioned this, but I'm not sure, and you're employed with Sionis Architecture.
That's right.
correct? All right, and you prepared the plans that have been submitted to the board in connection with this application?
Correct.
Okay. And those plans are dated,
10/13/2023, it was Exhibit 7.
okay. All right, so I just want you to focus on one thing. You included in your plans,
We will accept him as an expert.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You included with your plans on the first page, SP 101, a radius map. Can you just explain what that is and what it's intended to show?
Yes. We have a detail bubble number 4 and 5 on the bottom right of the page. SP 101 shows a vicinity map and a distance calculation showing the 250-foot radius compliance from any schools or childcare centers. And it states that Serendipity Learning Center is 3,218 feet from the subject property. In a subsequent Google search, I've just compiled all these schools that are nearby, and all of the following are the closest schools and daycares, all beyond 500-foot radius. To the west is Montclair Kimberly Academy Upper School. To the north is Montclair Kimberly Academy Middle School. To the east is the George Innes School, the Montclair High School, Montclair Cooperative School, Renaissance Middle School. And to the south is the Shamray Amuna Preschool, Park Street Academy, Immaculate Conception High School, Hillside Elementary School, and Montclair Community Pre-K. Those are the closest, and again, all of those are further than 250 feet as required.
Fall outside the radius
That's correct.
shown on your vicinity map on the plan.
Correct.
Okay. It's really all I have, Mr. Chairman. I think it establishes the third requirement for conditional use.
Questions from the board?
I have a question. The radius that you did it include schools and daycare centers?
Yes.
Licensed daycare centers?
Didn't check licensed. I mean, I Google searched for daycare centers. I wouldn't, I guess, know.
I did check. I didn't submit the report to you, but I did check the list of licensed daycare centers in Montclair, and none of them were within 250 feet of the entrance of this,
Right.
of this building.
Thank you, Janice.
I think there's a list from the state. It's
Yeah.
probably where Ms. Talley got it
Yeah.
from.
So again, we have nothing further, and I think that establishes the third condition of the conditional use ordinance.
And I will just confirm that this is in a section on the NC zone on Valley Road where this is a permitted conditional use.
Do we have questions from the public concerning this witness testimony?
Thank you very much.
Could you step up? And push the button. Is there a green button there?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you.
And this is for questions.
Sorry.
If you have a statement, we'll give you an opportunity to make that short.
Oh,
But if you have a question of this witness, that's what this is for.
okay. My question is,
And
what
we
is
need your,
going
na-
to...
we need your name
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Maria Amador,
and your address.
139 Valley Road.
Okay, thank you.
How this is going to be when the parking lot in that area is the more difficult situation that we have?
I think the parking lot is an issue, but that would be part of the site plan. And that's the second part of the hearing that we've been discussing, that will deal with what's going on with the building and the property and how it will be configured and traffic and that kind of thing. This is just for whether or not they meet the regulatory requirements, statutory requirements for being able to go forward, to go to that next step, okay?
Okay.
So it's a fair question, but it's not something that will be decided this evening.
Okay,
It'll be decided when they come back to us with a full plan that will theoretically address that question in a satisfactory way. Because if it doesn't, you know, there has to be a certain level of operability to the site, you know, in terms of the parking, in terms of how things are going, how people are going to get into it, how people are going to get out of it, how it's going to impact the community around it. You know, those are the things that we will consider when we deal with the site plan in the second phase of this.
okay. Thank you very much.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I'll direct this to you and not to Mr. Tremulak, but I assume that the applicant notified the neighbors of the hearing tonight.
And
That would be
my
required.
notice specifically talked about the bifurcating the
Okay,
application.
so I guess I'll end up addressing it. Will the applicant re-notice the neighbors about?
Absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you.
have to renotice again when we do come in for site plan, since we don't know when that's going to be. Yep.
And just to confirm, the neighbors that are noticed are the owners of the property, not renters. So if you
That's
have
correct.
renters in these buildings, I know it's standard,
Yeah,
but,
so it's all we,
yeah, I know, that's what your obligation is, but
and how would we know who the tenants were?
you just
Anyway,
a flyer in their mailbox.
well, yeah. I know you always felt that way, but that would require an amendment to the state statute. so.
Yeah, I'll go petition them.
You might wanna
No,
get
I
to-
mean, I think
might wanna
renters
get to
should be
work on it.
considered. Renters should be considered in something that changes their neighborhood. They could be renting for 30 years and then, you know, but I know that's not the statute, but I can't help myself and bring it up every time.
I know.
Any other questions from the public of the witness concerning what he's testified to this evening? Okay. All right. Do you have anything further, Mr. Tremulak?
Nothing further.
All right. Is there anybody who wants to make a comment with respect to what's an issue this evening from the public? Would you like to make a comment concerning the applicant's position that it meets the three requirements in order to proceed to the next phase? And that's kind of simplifying it, but
Distance from schools,
distance from schools,
right spot on down the road.
right?
That it's not a home
Not a home
occupation?
Not in a
Occupation.
vehicle or a home.
And no doing no delivery.
No,
It's
it's
not a
that it's not
mobile-
operating
it's not a
out of a
mobile
vehicle.
location.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I do all work.
All right,
That's
well,
the only thing, those four things are the only things that we're acknowledging today.
Yes.
correct. You know, and with that, you know, I think that the applicant, you know, has met his burden and made a sufficient presentation to show that they've qualified. So I would move that we approve this phase and that they've met the qualifications, and so we can move forward.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tremley.
Thank you. All right.
Don't go too far, Alan.
We'll give you a couple of minutes to transition.
They're not 1 meter turn.
Okay.
You bring that up, he's back. I bring up native plants every time.
Part of that has to do with the record of the town. The town doesn't know who a tenant is unless there's some separate tenant registration, which not all. Yeah.
They could if they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, they could also just say to the property that's left. They have to set a certified, but they can set a different standard.
Oh, like
Find out who lives in the building. They can find out the thing about it.
Could you make it part of the application package?
It's a little more complicated than just they could.
No, I understand this. No. Regulations.
I'm a tenant, I get it.
All right, so this is the 225 Lorraine Avenue map.
Yes, again, for the record, Alan Tremulac, appearing on behalf of the applicants, Sir Daniel and Patricia Rodio. This is an application for site plan approval and 2 C variances involving the property at 225 Lorraine Avenue. Property is located in the neighborhood commercial zone district, part of the Upper Montclair business district, just a few doors off of Valley Road. And the property is the home of Moline Kronberg Cleaners, which, fun fact for the board, is probably the oldest established business in the township of Montclair, or certainly one of the oldest. It's been in existence since 1911. It was originally located where Saunders Hardware is on Valley, around the corner on Valley Road. It's been operating from this location since 1940. My clients purchased the business in 1991 and have operated it continuously for, I believe, 32 years, if my math is correct. They also acquired the building. They also own the building. They purchased it in 2005. It's a one-story building with a small adjacent parking lot to the east. My clients filed this application for site plan approval to add a second story to the building, approximately 2,100 square feet. Purpose of the addition, as you'll hear from my client in a few minutes, is to provide much-needed additional space for the existing business, which is rather cramped on the first floor. There's, they do a significant amount of alterations and tailoring in a very confined space, and are looking to just add more space to that. Add an office on the second floor that my client can actually move around in. And also, they're also seeking to add a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor. We're also proposing to reconfigure the parking lot adjacent to the property. But the point of what I'm just saying is that there's no intention to increase the intensity of this business, but just to allow for better, more functional space for the existing business and the people working there. The 2 variances that we're seeking, first is a rear yard setback variance. The existing building is set back 2.74 feet from the rear property line, which is an existing, nonconformity, and we propose to have the second floor align with the rear of the existing building to provide for the same 2.74 foot setback in the rear. And then the second variance is, of course, a parking variance. We're dealing with the business in a business district. 14 spaces are required under the ordinance. We're providing 6 physical spaces and 1 electric vehicle space, which gives us credit for a total of 7 spaces. There are existing today probably 4, at most 5 legal spaces on the property. So I think we're picking up an additional space. We're also reconfiguring the lot to provide tandem spaces rather than what exists today, where you have angled spaces. And cars are still going to have to back out like they do today, but we think this is a more functional parking lot with also a number of site improvements around the parking lot, including, buffering, landscape buffering to the rear and to the side of the property. So that's the nature of the application. I have two witnesses. My first witness is Marcelo Rodio, and followed by Ryan Robertson, who you just heard, who will review the site plan and address the comments from the board's professionals. So,
Mr. Tremulak, I just want to ask you a question about
Sure.
your opening.
yeah,
You mentioned the addition of a one-bedroom apartment, but you said it's not going to be more intense use. The
well,
apartment's not
the
going to be rented
business
out?
use, the business use. Obviously, we're creating an apartment which increases, and we're providing a parking space for
So it will be
that.
rented out?
Yeah, pardon me?
It will be rented out?
Yeah, well, we're going to discuss it. I didn't mean to suggest, the business use is not intensifying, but we are, since we're putting the second story on, adding a small one-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, proceed.
all right. Exhibits, I guess?
Janice, can I ask you with respect to the exhibits, is your planning memo is that an exhibit?
Yes, it is.
Because it's addressed to the Historic Preservation Commission, and it probably should be addressed to the planning board? Is that correct?
It's the same report. I just.
Doesn't matter? Okay.
Right, because when that was submitted in the package, I hadn't received any revised plans, and rather than just take their name off and put your name on it.
Yeah, I just pointing that out in case
Right.
it was
Yep.
meaningful.
And we did review it. The HPC did review it.
Right. So the plans I received, I think, late last week, and I didn't get a chance to do a new report. I didn't think I needed to do a new report because it didn't change.
I'm not trying to point out an error, I'm just making sure
Just
that for
make
the
it-
records, it's okay.
Right, and I just want
Yeah.
to point out, normally I do an amended report, but I didn't think that these changes warranted an amended report. And we do have a letter which is submitted in front of you. I'll mark it into the record from Mr. Robertson, summarizing the changes in the revised plans that you received. And I think that they respond a lot to the comments from the Development Review Committee and the HPC. But the exhibits for this application include A1, the application, A2, the certification of taxes paid, A3, the proof of publication, A4, the affidavit of service, A5, the survey prepared by Richard Hingos dated June 3rd, 2019, A6 is the site plan prepared by Sionis Architecture, which was revised with a revision date of January 15th, 2024. A7 is the planning report dated October 27th, 2023. A8 is the report from the Historic Preservation Commission dated November 9th, 2023. A9 is the report from Boswell Engineering dated November 30th, 2023. A10 is the report from the Development Review Committee dated December 28th, 2023. A11 is the revised report from Boswell dated January 17th, 2024. A12, and I don't know if you received this, we did receive a report via email from the Township Engineer dated November 13th, 2023, which I did share with Mr. Trembulak about parking and the handicap parking in the street. I don't know if you received that in your packet or if it was online, but we do have his information on that. And A13, it would be the letter from Sionis Architecture dated January 16th, summarizing the changes to the latest plans.
I don't think I got the latest version of the plans. Am I missing them?
The latest version of the
115
plans,
revised, 115 revised?
I think it was in the packet, January 15th, 2024.
So I only get the electronic versions of the packet, so
Right,
I
and-
didn't see it on the link that we got.
I'm pretty sure it's there.
There's one, now, there's two. There's one up on the
On the new website.
Yeah, there's
'Cause-
there's two plans. They
You
both
have
have
to-
the same date, but one's a
Wait, there's two-
revised.
There's two websites?
There's 2
Don't go-
websites.
Don't go to the old website?
No, I
Oh.
used the link that's in the agenda.
Yeah,
Oh.
did
I
too.
never
That's
go
right.
to anything but the link in the
Okay,
agenda.
I'm sorry,
And
you
that's
know
what I-
what?
that's what I-
That's my fault because I didn't change the link. I need to change the
Oh, yeah,
link.
because that went to the old? site?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I'm on
okay.
Civic Live.
Unfortunately, when I put this on, I didn't put the new link into the new website, so I apologize for that. I'll make sure that I make those changes.
So what's the date on the latest?
The latest, it's dated January 15th, 2024.
Revised or?
That's the revision date.
That's the revision.
Yeah.
'Cause
the-
there's-
It was prepared, the original date's March 28th, 2023.
I guess the confusion for that's coming from the fact that there's two with that date, and one is labeled Rev 1, and the other one is not. And so,
All right.
No,
I'm not sure,
thank you.
I'm not sure why there's two applications with that same date on the website.
I don't like that.
Because I don't upload them anymore. I used to. Somebody else does. I'm not sure why. I have to double check it. Yeah, and you know, Rod?
Yeah, it was because we sent you a PDF and then it didn't have the clouds on it. So the one you Rev 1 shows the clouds.
I had asked Mr. Robertson to circle the changes, and I guess the Rev 1 has the
Has the-
changes are circled in the plan. That's the only difference.
So the Rev 1 is the
Yes.
most current.
That's the one that you have here and that were distributed.
And that's the one that's up on the township website.
Well, there's 2 township
The
websites.
agenda, the link,
Yeah.
the link on the agenda that's on it.
The link on
not
the
working.
agenda went to the old website
Yeah.
that didn't
From
have the
this one.
updated plan. No, not that one.
But it's got the Rev 1.
So the link in the agenda went to a totally different site. It went to the old Civic Live version of our website, not the one that you're on.
Okay.
So now I'm trying to download that as I sit here.
Well, here with a dumb question for our council. Are we able to consider this under the circumstances, or do we have an OPMA problem?
As long as the board has access to the latest set of plans, I don't see why we couldn't go forward.
Yeah, you received the copies and it's on the website. If you go, it's just that the link on the agenda is incorrect, but the pending applications information on the website is correct. So it's a matter of an incorrect link on the agenda on the website.
Carlos, I mean, what Janice just said, the last thing was important, is that the information, the right information is available to the public. We have one link, it's not an open problem, is what I'm hearing. And I agree with that based on the last thing Janice said.
I always,
Okay.
whatever comes in my email gets downloaded, and I click the link.
Yeah, okay.
Gotta always check my links.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Ready? You need to be sworn. He's going to swear you in.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you move that microphone a little bit closer to you? And would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Okay. My name is Daniel Marcelo Rodio. I live in 198 Charles Street in Clifton, New Jersey. I'm the owner of Moline Kronberg Cleaners, and that's what.
And Marcello, are you also one of the owners of the property at 225 Lorraine Avenue?
Yes, I am.
And you own that property together with your wife Patricia, is that correct?
Correct, which
Oh.
is sitting on my left.
Okay, and that property is in fact occupied by Moline Kronberg Cleaners?
Correct.
Right. And how long have you, is the business owned by you and your wife also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how long have you and your wife owned the business?
Since 1991.
Okay. And at some point you acquired ownership of the property, correct?
Correct.
When was that?
2005.
Okay. Have you operated the business at this location since 1991?
Since then, yes.
Do you know how long Moline Kronberg Cleaners has been in business?
Since 1911, the first owners were Moline and Kronberg, and I'm the fourth generation owner of the actual business.
Okay. And do you know how long the business has operated from this location at 225 Lorraine Avenue?
From our records that are since circa 1940.
Okay.
Mr. Rodio, could you move that microphone a little bit closer to you when you speak? Pick up your voice.
Do I get to insert a wow during this pause? It's a pretty impressive.
What's that?
It's a pretty impressive thing. It's worth noting, and I'm noting it. Fourth generation business, been in Montclair for 100 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so the existing building at 225 Lorraine, it's a one-story building, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you've filed this application with the planning board seeking approval to enlarge the building, primarily to construct a second floor addition, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain to the board why it is you're seeking to add the second story to the building?
Well, we need more space. We are all cramped in. We don't have a large area where we could conduct tailoring. We use large pieces of clothing that require a big table, and we really are not in the best way to do it right now. We do it, but it's not the best way to do it. That's why we would like more space, and also we do a lot of alterations for wedding gowns, and there is a lot of ladies that would like a little more privacy, which is hard to get right now. And I also would like to have a little office other than a telephone booth so I could conduct a little bit of business without being interrupted every 3 minutes. Otherwise, I have to bring all that home also because it's just impossible to do it. Certainly, that's the most that I'm looking for,
Let's talk about that just a little bit. You currently have an office on the first floor?
If you could call it, yes.
Yeah, operating out of a space you indicated was the size of a phone booth or so.
Correct.
Okay, so, and who uses that office, you, primarily?
Primarily me and my wife, and we married so we could actually fit, and and it's okay. Anybody else coming in cannot be done.
Okay, so the new office that you're hoping to construct on the second floor, would that basically replace the office on the first floor and continue to be utilized by you and your wife?
Yes.
Okay. And your business currently involves tailoring and alterations, correct?
Of course.
And that's currently done on the first floor?
Everything.
Roughly where? And how much space do you have?
Right now,
for the alterations? and
for the
tailoring?
alterations, it's not that much. We actually crumbling into the cooling area also. Some of the sewing machines and everything will be like 350 square feet, which it's very improper to do. Sometimes when people go in to try on clothing, we have some of the tailors have to move or get out of the way, and it just, to us it's okay, but some people it may not be, doesn't look really right to conduct business.
Okay. So you're looking to have more space and more comfortable space?
Yes.
For not only your employees, but also your customers? who are
Sure,
coming in?
for everybody.
Okay. Is there any other business uses, proposed for the second floor other than what you just described?
No,
Business uses?
for what we have.
Okay. I think the plans show a small kitchenette area.
Oh, but just not really. It's just maybe if there is a lady that wants to try on clothing, we will give her a cup of coffee or serve her a little bit of water, to have something and just to accommodate, to make them feel comfortable.
Okay. And you're also proposing to include on the second floor a one-bedroom apartment, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a tenant identified for that apartment?
Tentative will be my son, which he just joined the business about 6 months or maybe a year now. Time is flying. But he would like to move there. No guarantees, but he would like to move there.
Okay, you're hopeful, but you don't know for sure that
Right.
the tenant is.
Right.
So if it's not your son, it would be another
It would
tenant.
be another tenant.
You would rent to, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so based upon what you just described as the reasons for the second floor addition, do you anticipate that there would be any increase in the volume of your business as a result of adding the second floor to the building?
I would like to have 300% more, but that is going to happen. Nobody knows.
But that would happen hopefully regardless of whether you did the second floor. but-
No, yes, exactly. No.
Okay. And
That's for comfort. And,
Okay. Do you anticipate hiring any additional employees or staff as a result of
No,
the
not right
second
now.
floor?
Not right now.
All right, so is it safe to say that the business would essentially operate the same way as it operates today, but with just a better and more additional space on the second floor?
Yes.
Okay. What are the hours of operation for the business?
Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay. And approximately how many employees do you have working in the business?
12.
Okay. How do those employees get to work?
Most of them, they use public transportation, Uber, Lyft, and maybe one or two they drive.
Okay. Where do the employees who drive park their vehicles?
They use a parking lot. Not our parking lot, in the municipal parking.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you restrict your employees from parking in your parking lot?
Yes, because we don't have that much room.
Okay.
Cannot give that.
So they're not allowed to park in the
Yeah.
parking lot?
We don't have the luxury.
Okay. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about how the existing parking lot is utilized today.
Yes.
How many spaces in the lot are utilized to park vehicles, either of employees or business vehicles?
Well, we have a van that stays there overnight. During the day, it's not there because it's making its deliveries, its rounds, which is pretty much from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. One parking is for me and my wife. We come together. We don't take two cars. We don't do that.
Okay.
We limit ourselves also. And then the rest is for customers that they come in and out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you basically utilize two spaces, one for the van, which is actually out, as you said, during the day, making deliveries and pickups, and
Yes.
really not parking it during day business hours, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you use another parking space for your personal vehicle, you or your wife?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's just those two spaces that are utilized by, I'll say, the business or business employees?
Yes.
Okay. And the remaining spaces that you currently have, and how many are there? Do you know how many legal spaces there are
There are
existing?
3 park on an angle, 3 spaces.
Park on an angle?
Yeah, park on an
Oh,
angle
okay.
right now.
All
That's
right.
the way I inherit the building and the business. And that's how it was marked, so I kept it the same way.
And those spaces are basically reserved for the use of customers, is that right?
Yes. Many times, a lot of people, they just park there and they go to Dunkin' Donuts or wherever they go, and I don't see them. It's hard to know where they went. But it is what it is. That's just a fact.
The people who are parking in that lot, who are your customers, and I
Yes.
assume you try to limit it to your customers,
Mhm.
how long would they typically be parked?
It's typically you go into the cleaners, as you will know, a few minutes. It's not park all the time. No, not gonna half hour, an hour. No, it's in 5 to 10 minutes the most that each individual will come in and out.
Most people are just coming to drop off or pick up
Correct.
cleaning, correct?
Correct.
And I guess people who come for alterations would use the lot and be there for a little bit longer?
A few more minutes, sure.
Yeah, okay. So the plan that we've submitted to the board proposes to reconfigure the parking lot and provide a total of 6 tandem parking spaces where you'd have one car parking behind another. How do you intend to utilize those spaces or allocate those spaces? The 6 new spaces?
The back of them, it will be for the van, I will say, my space, and for the tenant.
So you intend to have a dedicated parking space for the tenant in the rear?
On the rear.
Okay.
And the 3 are for customers in and out.
So the customers would then park in, behind those 3 spaces?
Mhm.
Okay. And they would back out just like they do today?
No difference.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all I have for Mr. Rodio. No further questions this time.
Questions from the board?
Do you clean clothes on the location, or is it pick up and drop off?
No, we do everything in-house.
Okay. Do you have any environmental issues?
Environmental issues, if there is any issues, they are being taken care of by an environmental office.
So there are environmental issues?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Any dry cleaning that is established has an environmental issue in the state, actually in the whole country.
Are you musing about the apartment? Because so am I.
I wasn't musing about the apartment. I was just, there's monitoring wells all over the neighborhood, and I was curious if they were coming from.
It's not only from me, it's from all the cleaners, gasoline stations. Actually, there is also from all the automobile mechanics. Those are all, they have, unfortunately, those have, they have used non-friendly environmental solvents. We don't use that, since 2001. We haven't used any of those chemicals, but whoever was there before, I cannot say that they did not. So that's why there are those monitoring wells, and they are all over town and every town in New Jersey, and actually in the country.
So is there a cleanup going on, or is it just monitoring at this point?
This is monitoring. They don't want it to go into the water table. So once they get into the water, then, but if there is none, they just monitor it, and that's it.
Okay. Have they done, and now I'll move to the apartment, have they done any indoor air testing?
Indoor testing, there is no issues.
No issues, even for a resident who will
Mhm.
live there all the time?
Yep, there is no issues.
He's going to put his kid there, so.
It's just, I mean, it could be his kid, it could be another tenant. I mean, if you're doing cleaning on property.
I've been there 32 years, and I'm still okay.
Sure.
You are welcome to see what I do in my shop.
So the expectation is that if people need alterations, they're going to come in and walk upstairs?
That's the plan. Not all of them, but most of them, yes. Some of them that have minor alterations don't have to walk upstairs, but the people that have major alterations, that they will.
Oy. See what you did there?
Huh?
You see what you did there? But that's not our problem.
Other questions from the board?
So did you say the tenant spot is going to be dedicated? There'll be a sign that says tenant parking only? And that'll be what, spot number 1 on the plan here? Or
I
one of
think
the-
it's going to be, where are the spots numbered? It would be number 3
Number 3.
on the
okay.
east side.
And where will Mr. Rodio's van be?
Number 1, which is kind of where it parks currently, the van would be number one. Number two would be for him, his wife, or employee, if they choose to give it to an employee. And then number three would be for the tenant. And then 4, 5, and 6 would be for customers.
Is there still a proposed loading space in the street?
We're proposing that, it's subject to the town approving it. Now, there's no loading space now, so, I mean, we could, we haven't requested a variance for it, but we could on the basis of the fact that, it's an existing, nonconformity. But we're hopeful to get the town to approve a loading space as well as an ADA parking space, on Bellevue Avenue. But that's a matter that has to go to the governing body, so, if the board, favors us with an approval, that would have to be a condition.
Because there's no parking in front, correct?
There's currently no parking in
No
front of
parking.
this property. The
And
parking begins like 2 doors down and goes down the rest of Lorraine Avenue.
Yes.
Would the van use that loading space during the day?
In and out, for a couple of minutes, drop off, pick up, and go away.
Because it would just seem if it's parked all the way in the back, customers are going to park behind it, and then you're kind of trapped for a period of time.
It's hard, yes.
Other questions from the board? Any questions from the public with respect to Mr. Rodio's testimony this evening? Oh, Mr. Tremula?
Okay. Call Ryan Robertson. Okay, good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
While they're getting set up, I have, here's a PowerPoint presentation. I have hard copies of that. Oh, we talked, I have to, I almost call, yeah.
Mr. Tremblay, I think we'll mark the presentation as 8:14.
Okay, thank you. He's ready to swear you in again.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Ryan Robertson, Sionis Architecture, 8 Hillside in Montclair.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Ryan, you gave your...
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a preliminary question before we get started? Did anybody from the HPC have an opportunity to review the new design?
I don't, not yet. I mean, we didn't provide it to HPC.
So it didn't go to any of the revisions committee or any group, any subcommittee within the HPC? Okay, thank you.
We didn't, I mean, unless it was...
Okay, I would like to address that a little bit later, but I just wanted to inquire. Thank you.
Well, Ryan, you provided your professional qualifications about 30 minutes ago. Is it safe to say that your license hasn't been revoked or otherwise nullified in the last 30 minutes?
Still in good standing.
Okay, good. All right, so you prepared the plans for this project as well, correct?
That's right.
All right, and you've also prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which is typical for your office, to assist you in presenting and discussing the plans this evening, correct?
Correct.
And you have that on the screen, and we've marked that as A14 for identification. So I'm going to ask you if you would go through the PowerPoint and walk the board through the site plan and what we're proposing for the property.
Before we do that, Mr. Robertson, you're testifying as an expert tonight? In what field?
Architecture. I'm a
Just
registered
architecture?
architect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So you can see the PowerPoint on the screen. This is mostly the drawings that you have in front of you. A few slight different images that you'll see. This is the application for 225 Lorraine Avenue, Montclair. On the screen, you see a property survey by Richard Hingos, dated June 3rd, 2019. The lot is approximately 66 feet by 59 feet, trapezoidal in shape. It's 0.09 acres or 4,095 square feet. It's located on the north side of Valley Road, between Valley Road and Norwood Avenue, 70 feet from Valley Road. And the lot is improved with a one-story brick and stucco building and a paved parking area. The existing parking partially extends into the right-of-way, which is shown more clearly on a later slide, which I'll talk about in more detail. Next slide, please, Marcelo. And so here's a photo of the existing Google Street View dated October 2021. You see to the west here is Veggie Heaven. This is the subject property. And to the east is a 2.5-story building, which is a dental office. The operator, which is here today. And the subject building is brick and stucco with a wood shingle mansard roof concealing a flat roof. Next page, please. And so here we have some rear and alley views, which are sort of important to this application. The alley, as you see right here where I'm pointing, is on the property itself. And this is a view looking to the south when standing to the west of the building. So to the left of the image is the cleaner here. And here's a view of a tree in the backyard, which the plans show to be removed. But since the date of this photo, that has already happened, so the tree is no longer there. The property line in this photo is somewhere between the face of this building and the face of this fence. It's 2.9 feet from the face of the building in this corner back here, and it extends to 2'11" in the corner, sort of behind where this photo was taken. Next photo, or next slide, please. And here's an image of the surrounding area, image courtesy Bing Satellite 3D view from 2023. To the east is that 2.5-story dental office. To the west is an auto shop, Veggie Heaven, and Williams Sonoma. And to the south is Saunders Hardware on Valley Road. And that is the previous location of Moulin Kronberg from when it was started in 1911. It subsequently moved to the current location, 221 Lorraine, in 1940. The proposal, let's see, I'm sorry, next slide, please. Here's the proposal for the application, which is to construct, as Alan said, a 2-story addition consisting of one dwelling unit and an additional office space. We intend to keep the dry cleaner operational during construction, so the proposed location of the stair to the second floor and the roof is located in that alley that was in the previous slide right here to the west. We propose new green roof spaces, a repaved parking lot, which is restriped, as was testified earlier, to 6 tandems parking spaces, 1 EV charging station located right around here, a new garbage and recycling enclosure located right here underneath the canopy extension, which is the second floor, kind of squares this building off. And here are the 6 parking spaces. I don't know if we need to talk more about, well, I do.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, before you do that, just a quick question. The trash enclosure that's proposed, does that comply with the town ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think you should talk about the existing parking, which I think is shown on this slide, as well as the proposed parking.
That's right.
Let's talk about the existing first.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll go to the first. So you can see the dashed lines on this photo, which are right here, 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 and here. This dash extends onto the public sidewalk. All of these spaces are quite bad. It's maybe only 4 spaces that are acceptable, but right now employees sometimes park here, or the van parks here overnight, which is where we're proposing that it would stay overnight. And then I think that's part of the reason we're asking for this loading zone, because they have a pretty healthy delivery service. So the van is gone all day long and would just need to come in and have a quick spot to exchange garments. As we said earlier, 14 spaces are required by the ordinance, and we're proposing 7, the 6 you see here, and a credit for one with that EV charger. We talked about this space here for visuals. That would be dedicated to the tenant.
Can I ask you a question about the EV
Yes.
space? So ordinarily, I'm a big proponent of putting EV chargers wherever we can. It seems a little odd for a business that's this kind of in and out. I mean, it almost seems like you're asking for trouble, that somebody's going to park there and charge and disappear.
That's true. I mean, it could be, these spaces are going to be reserved for employees and the tenant. So the tenant especially could have access if he, depending on where his port is.
So you're thinking it's a good thing to have, since you're going to have a residential unit there, and it is what it is?
And it's always good to add them. We need more and more of them, and it gets us a credit.
Certainly right about that.
Yeah, it gets us a credit for a
And it gets a
space.
credit. Well, I knew that. Well, I'm just saying that if he's asking for a variance anyway, and so in other words, if it's just,
Right.
if you want it, fine.
But it's
Seems
not
like
open
a
to the
weird-
public.
No, the EV charging station could be, yeah. If someone did want to park here, I don't think there'd be anything stopping, especially if they're coming for a gown fitting or something. They might want to park there for a half hour or a while, and they could use that EV.
But if somebody living down the street wanted to charge their car,
I don't think
Oh,
you
I
can
think
stop
would
him.
be customers only.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's customer-
except he's already
it's
testified he
customers
can't
only.
stop him. I have a feeling it's just going to become anything goes, leave it there for 6 hours, but
it's there for the credit.
It's
We could
also,
move it.
it's
You're
also,
such a cynic.
it's also a requirement now.
Think of
Yeah.
realists.
It's not optional, it's a requirement, so.
That.
Right.
That they provide the EV charging space. So they don't have an option for that. It's a state law,
oh, okay.
so.
And if we're concerned about
But
people
that's
who
the
aren't.
spot in front of the tenant? Is that what you said?
Say again?
Where's the EV going? It's going where the tenant spot is supposed to
We
be?
proposed it right here. right
Oh,
at
in the
end of
middle, in
walkway.
between, I see.
But there's nothing stopping us from locating it back here if we needed to. If he,
It
go ahead.
could be used for it could be shared among spaces, right?
I think we were proposing a 1 port, but yeah, if you had a 2 port, it could be shared.
Well, if you have it in that one port, who can use it? Which spaces can use it?
In this,
Yeah.
in the location we show, it depends on the vehicle, I think, where the port is located. So, and how they pull in, right.
Can the tenant get out if there's a gown fitting going on for 30 minutes, or they have to wait? I see there's a gap there. Is there a way for them to sneak around there, or are they stuck?
If the tenant was parked here and a customer comes in here, they'll have to wait until they leave to back out. But if the tenant is the son, he's working there and he
No,
won't.
I understand, but if it's not,
If it's not, yeah.
then they might be stuck there until that gown fitting's done. Okay.
Yeah, and if the idea is that the EV charger is going to be made available, it needs to be up front,
It has to be.
not in the back of the parking
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Because in the back, between the cars that stay there, it'll be blocked all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess the law doesn't say it has to be available per se. It has to it says it has to be there.
Well, let's look
Yeah.
at the law in a way that makes sense. God forbid.
But that is a question. Does the EV parking spot need to be available to the general public?
Yeah.
You know, if it's going to make any sense at all, I mean, it's the EV charger there is inconsistent with the in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, unless the one tenant or you or your truck or your delivery van, you know, are electric, you know, or your personal car is electric, you know, otherwise, you know, if it's going to have any benefit to the rest of the surrounding area, it's got to be it's got to be in the front so that theoretically, somebody could go out and hook up to it for 15 minutes to get whatever benefit they could out of it.
Just to clarify, the state regs do not dictate how the EV spaces are managed.
Yeah, I know.
Just that they're
I know.
provided, so.
The state did its usual bang-up job in drafting that legislation.
So in other words, they
Right.
could be confined just to the
Yeah,
owners
you
of the
can
property.
limit it
Right.
to just,
they should.
Right, and
you can limit it just to
To your own-
workers or
Yes.
tenants and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
provide it for customers.
right. And do we dictate whether it needs to be fast charging or
I
medium?
believe our standards say it has to be at least level 2.
Which, how many hours would that be? Or
I think
time?
that's about like 6 to 8 gets you a
That's
full
like
charge.
overnight.
6 to 8 hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
3 levels. That's like I mean, if you want, we don't require a fast charging station, which is a lot more expensive, but at least a level 2, which would be overnight charging.
I know, I'm just advocating that we do something that makes a little bit of sense, as opposed to
Well,
something that makes very little sense.
I think the kind of middle placement does the best it can in that because it fits for the one in the back and allows for one in front. Perhaps figuring out how that spot that would be blocked in by the electric charging port is managed, deciding what you do with that further rear spot could dictate
I
the
would-
usefulness of
Yeah, I want to go in the other direction. I actually want to let them, I mean, only because consistent with what the chair said, I don't want to micromanage it, but I also don't want to make you do something that's inconsistent. I don't want to make you do something that's going to cause a spot to be blocked off
Right.
for a long time by somebody who's not patronizing your client's business.
It seems to me it makes sense that, because there's usually a quick turnover with customers, that in this instance, it would make sense to have the charging station for customers or tenants, not, I mean, workers, employees or tenants,
Right.
and not
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
And I think I think Marcelo is open to wherever the board recommends, if it's a condition for approval, if
Yeah.
they state you want it here, if you state you want us to move it to the back, I think we're open to
I
any of those.
don't think we want to, I don't think we want to get into it. I think
Yeah,
okay.
I think we're musing in a way that we're not trying, we're not going to tell you what to do with it, but we're suggesting that you not
But
make it
you-
worse for
But
yourselves.
it's going to be a one port
Right.
charger.
Right.
Could it be 2 and thereby?
It could be 2. It doesn't get us an extra credit, but we could do a 2 if the applicant agrees to the cost. It costs more for a 2-port.
It's like, why?
Yeah. But I think you're all bringing up a good point about this being reserved for the tenant. If this is truly the location of the port, it doesn't make sense for the tenant to be there. That makes sense for that to be an employee space, so that they're there all day, and they may get blocked in by someone charging for 15 minutes, but they're not leaving.
Right.
And the van here and maybe this one becomes the tenant. But that would be an arrangement that Marcelo would make with the tenant, whatever makes the most logical sense.
I think, given the nature of the, it's a small property, owner occupied there all the time, I mean, it's parking lot's going to require some management on the part of the owner. And of course, they have an interest. They're not going to let people, from the public just pull up and, charge their car during the day for 6 or 8 hours. I mean, it's, he's a nice guy, but, it's just going to require, maybe some management. We recognize, as we already discussed, that, we're envisioning that if the tenant is not the son and it's another tenant, that likelihood is that the car would not be parked there but during business hours, but there may be times where it is parked there, he needs to come in, and a customer pulls behind him, well, then they're going to just have to make sure that customer comes out, and the tenant will be notified of that this is the situation, and they might have to wait a few minutes, if they're parking during business hours and somebody's blocking them in, and they need to wait until that customer moves. But all of this is really, I think,
Would signage help?
there'll be signage,
Can I ask a question, Kevin? If a non-electrical vehicle parks in an EV parking station, charging station, are they ticketed?
Not on a private lot, on a public lot.
But in a public lot,
Yeah.
they would be, okay.
Can I ask you another question? This is not a deal breaker issue for me at all, but who pays for the electricity?
I think they have credit cards in them.
It's
I believe so.
whoever using it has to pay for it?
I believe so. I wonder if there's enough image in the, or
Does
enough
the
information.
statute provide for that?
That's not determined in the statute.
Of course not.
I have a
In
picture of the
stores,
spec, but I
understand
don't,
it.
I
think
can't
it's
tell.
ridiculous for this property. I just think it's.
Is that typically the way they handle it?
I think so.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I have a picture of the spec, but I can't zoom in close enough to see if it has a swipe.
Yeah, well, make sure you get one that has a credit card.
So I'll go back to this. What I was saying was was the stripe, diagonal striping that exists right now is very suboptimal, because I think a lot of the people that exit tend to head this direction towards Valley, and you have to back out in like a 270-degree turn. It's really kind of dangerous and not good, and that's another reason why the tandem space will be much more safe for whichever direction you're going to travel.
Yeah.
And getting all the parking out of the sidewalk is.
We're going on to Lorraine, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Lorraine.
I keep hearing Valley.
This is Valley
I've
over
heard
here, sorry.
Belleville. It's Lorraine Avenue, okay.
Do you have to do a wider curb cut?
No, we're keeping the existing curb cut, which is already wide.
Wide enough for
Yeah.
three cars?
Yeah, it goes from here right now all the way to here.
But even in this arrangement, there is going to have to be backing out. onto the
Yes,
ring.
for everyone.
It's just much safer.
Okay, so we think the tandem spacing configuration you see here will be a vast improvement to what's there. And also on this slide, which I've got 10 more slides, here's the dashed line of the property line that Mr. Trembiak alluded to. That's one of our variance requests. The rear property setback is 20 feet, and here's how much of the existing building is already beyond, and we require a variance to build on top of the existing footprint.
So this setback of the second floor will match the setback of the rear of the existing building?
Correct. And another thing I'd like to note on this slide was a comment in the Boswell report, comment number 22, pointed out that right here, this is very difficult to see on this slide here, but if you have the paper, you could look at it. The property line, as I showed in the photo, goes through the middle of this, between the fence and the building. We proposed gravel on our side of the property line, but the drawing shows a granite curb extending to the fence, and it shows a Ryerson steel edging for the landscaping right here extending to the fence. So we would propose eliminating that and stopping it at the property line so that we comply.
So you eliminate the encroachment?
That's
The
right.
curb encroachment onto the
That's right.
adjoining property? Okay.
Next slide, please. This slide shows some more information about the site. Here you see existing arborvitae right here. We propose to keep 11 of them, starting at this corner by the dental office, extending all the way to here, and then eliminating 4 of them. And this is so that we can have this dark shaded area is a gravel area, 3 feet wide between the curb and the planting bed, that we intend to use for snow removal or snow storage, and vehicle overhang. And the lighter shaded area right here would be proposed gravel that I was talking about. And the reason we wanted to remove the tree, which has already been removed, and kind of develop the back here a little bit, is because we wanted to kind of be a good neighbor, since we plan to take this alley, and we don't know how people in these 2 existing buildings use the alley, but it is our property. And so we would like, in case of an emergency, someone thought they could get out through the rear and needed someplace to go, we have a clear path for them, free of obstructions, so that they could walk on the property and go behind our building to get out in the event of some sort of emergency.
Was a tree removed in anticipation of this design?
I'm not sure. You have to cut it because something happened weather-wise?
Yes, because it fell on the roof halfway.
Oh.
That's a good reason.
That's a good reason.
Yep.
So I have another question about this slide. I think I saw it in your presentation that you have agreement to close up Veggie Heaven's windows.
We have reached out to the neighbor. I don't know if Alan wants to speak.
I can address that, because I know this was an issue brought up
Yeah.
at the DRC.
Right.
the fact that the zoning allows us to go right up to the property line. There are 2 windows on the first floor at the rear of the Veggie Heaven restaurant, which would be essentially closed if we go, but by us doing what we're allowed to do, which is to extend the building to the property line.
So you're allowed to extend the building to the property line even though there would be windows on the adjacent property? Oh,
Correct, yeah.
okay.
There's no exception for that, and I do want to tell you, and I can provide a copy of this because you raised it at the DRC meeting about letting that property owner know. I wrote a specific letter, in addition to sending the legal notice to all the property owners, I wrote a separate letter, which I sent by certified mail on January 9th to the owner of 631 Valley Road, in which I specifically told them what the plans were and the fact that we're proposing expansion of the building to the property line, and although it's legally permitted, quote, I nonetheless wanted to bring this to your attention because the expanded building will block the existing walls, the existing windows on the eastern side of your building occupied by the Veggie Heaven restaurant. Again, that was sent out. I haven't received any response. It's the most we could do. So I should probably, you know, I made multiple copies of this, not that you need them, but. Okay. Yes, you also, I don't know if you're finished with this slide,
No,
but.
I've got a lot more on this slide.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, good.
Can I just ask one more question? Those windows were barred anyway, were they? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's kitchen windows for the restaurant.
What happens with the piping and wiring that's on the Veggie Heaven building?
Right, I have a slide later that's showing that when we get to the elevations, but there's a radon pipe that we've designed the stair so that it could be rerouted under the stair and up, which you'll see in a later slide, if that's okay.
And is that for radon it specifically?
Yeah, we believe so.
Or is it a radon type fan for, say, an environmental issue from a dry cleaner?
Probably could be, yeah.
Either way,
But
we
you
need
don't
to
have-
get
It's
it.
been there a while. It's been there a
But you don't have one operating in your building? But, okay. And they
Okay.
have an air conditioning unit too, right?
I think on the second floor, they have a window up there that has an air conditioning unit.
So that'll have to get removed?
No, actually, it's not air conditioner, it's just a shell. It's a shell. It doesn't have an air conditioner.
It's just a shell, like it doesn't operate?
It's just where the actual air condition fits, but there is no air condition. They have a central air condition. And that's just, maybe it was many years ago and it was left there by them. But there is nothing there. Just
Except the bracket or
It's
the.
just a bracket, yeah, it's a bracket actually.
The updated plan you have, which we'll see when we get to the floor plans, I've shown the existing windows. These are the windows we want to block, but both stories have a window here for ventilation, natural ventilation and daylight, both places, so, which we are not planning to block. So moving on this slide, there's a clouded area, a revision cloud right here that I just want to bring your attention to because the Boswell letter made a note of this. And so I'll explain. That was the removal of a note that was there that was stating that the applicant, in the previous submission, that the applicant should purchase an overnight parking permit for hours between 5 p.m. to 8 plus weekends. But we removed this note in lieu of adding a note on the zoning chart in the revision for the apartment resident to obtain a parking permit in the public lot. However, like as we've testified today, we would like for the resident to have a dedicated space, and likely Marcelo's son, so that he works in the building. To the east of the lot here, we show this planting strip, which is 3 foot 5.5 inches wide from the property line to the face of the curb. Planted in the front here, this light green color is 5 Carolina rose shrubs, which are deciduous. They grow 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And to the rear, from here all the way to the back, are 18 shamrock inkberries, which is an evergreen shrub. These grow 42 to 48 inches tall and are 3 feet wide. The red arrows on this diagram show a pedestrian path for the employees or the tenant. The green is a pedestrian path, to either the entrance to the dry cleaner right here or the private entrance to the tailoring and the apartment. We also proposed on this drawing, we show the curb painting for the proposed loading zone right here and signage, and for the proposed handicap parking space, since there's no room on the site. Currently, there's no safe handicap parking spaces on the site, and we are required one by ordinance and by ADA. So right now, when needed, people will call ahead and ask for assistance getting in and out of the building, and they would continue to do that, but hopefully Mr. Trembulac and the applicant will pursue the appropriate legal process for obtaining handicap parking on the street with the council and the mayor.
Excuse me, briefly, the pedestrian walkway through the parking lot, was there any consideration given, or perhaps there should be consideration given, to making that a slight rise? It'll both slow cars going into the rear of the property and also provide a bit of more safety for the pedestrians walking through an active parking lot.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, but we do need the parking lot to pitch this way for drainage reasons. So I wonder if we had the rise, if that might be a problem. I don't know if there's a way to have a channel in it or something. That would be a possibility, but it's a good point. You can't have wheel stops or bollards or anything because then you can't use the other spaces. But no, we did not consider that. There could also be maybe the raised path like you see at an intersection.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting, kind of like just essentially a speed table matching the pedestrian walkway.
I see. I thought you meant like a speed hump.
No, not like a speed hump, but like a
Gotcha.
raised crosswalk, essentially.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I think we would be open to that if the board needed that for as a condition of approval.
A raised crosswalk wouldn't continue to obstruct the drainage flow?
Well, that's why I was wondering if it has channels underneath it. Like I'm not sure. I haven't looked at them enough. We could.
Or just different colored brick, like we sometimes use, right? Just to distinguish it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
There is the painted stripe right here, the diagonal painted stripe, but okay, then let's see. I already talked about that. So all of these updates you see on here result in a slight decrease in the impervious coverage due to the gravel and the planting areas, but very slight. We went from 94.6% impervious down to 94.33, where only 80 is allowed. So this is a non-conforming condition that we need relief from. This plan also shows the foot candle calculations of the public service pole, which is right here, that currently illuminates the whole parking lot adequately. It's on a timer, and we gathered information about that pole and show the foot candle readings. There is one that is under the 0.5 required. It shows up on the plan right about here. It says 0.4. But we should probably get an accurate reading, or we will get an accurate reading of what exists, and we could provide supplemental lighting in that area if needed. But and then the next slide, please.
I do have a quick question on this.
Yes.
You don't have an engineer who will be testifying. Okay, so you're not touching the elevation of the current lot. Can you just describe how the drainage works now?
Yeah. Yes. Right now, this is the high point. It all pitches. All of this is surface runoff on the parking area. All the roof drainage collects and empties out into, you can see it in one of the photos in the drawing. I can't remember what sheet I can tell you, but there's the sheet that has existing condition photos, and one of them you can barely make out that there's like a pipe outlet right here and a pipe outlet right here. And that connects to the roof drainage, and we intend to connect to the same. So this entire square footage of drainage that's being handled by those underground pipes, it would be the same. And
the survey shows it as being almost dead flat. He only measured the corners of the property. No, I'm sorry. There's a foot 1.25 feet from the back to the front on the right side. Yeah, about 1.25 feet, I guess. I'm sorry, that's.
Yeah, it goes up a bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less on the left side. Did you consider retaining anything? Is there anything that, although it's not required, because you're not really adding any more impervious surface, you can, are you confident that you don't need, I know you added the gravel for, I guess that's to infiltrate some of the water from the snow, that you can pile it?
Yep, that's intended for snow storage when they need to plow and have someplace to put it. This right now is currently pervious because it's just dirt and clumpy grass, and we just make it easier to walk on with pea gravel. So that's kind of not a gain or a deficiency there.
Yeah, and then just explain again, where's the roof gonna flow now?
So we're gonna have a green roof here, this whole area that will collect underneath underneath the tiles and feed to the perimeter. We'll have a perimeter drain and find where it connected to this. So the roof may pitch half to the left, half to the right, underneath the green roof system, and then connect to the pipes that exist right now that empty onto the street.
So you'll be dumping into the street?
Yeah, just what exists now.
Where you don't do it now?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's coming off the roof now onto the parking lot and then going into the street anyway.
No, it comes off the roof into a pipe that's already buried underground, probably right here.
Okay.
If you were to dig a hole, you would find that pipe.
So it is coming off the roof now?
It is coming off the roof now. Right.
That's
So
what
I guess you'll slow it down.
Right.
While we're, while we're talking about the drainage, just going back to that curb in the back left that's going to be removed, does that have any effect on the drainage in that part of the site, or?
I don't have the elevation there, but I mean, I know this is the high point of the site. We could do, rough grade below the pea gravel to make sure we have sort of a swale to pull it out. But yeah, that's the best I know about that right now.
All right.
These underground pipes, have you investigated them? Are they operational?
They're operational, right, Marcelo? Like, yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, when it rains, you see it coming out, and you don't have any problems, leaks in the building or anything.
No, since it's already a flat roof.
Okay, we're ready for the next slide. And so here we move on to the floor plans. The first floor is an existing 1,818 square foot. That's inclusive of this 128 square feet here for the addition where the stair is. We propose a new storefront system in the front here. The first floor business operation is mostly unchanged in this plan except for kind of this area, the counter area where you come and pick up and drop off. And then there's a small space that exists right here, which I believe is where Marcelo now is forced to do tailoring, kind of right in the picture window. No privacy, and very small space for workers and people. And like he said, he'd like to, he's getting a lot of demand for wedding gowns and stuff, and he'd like a more private space. So the revision clouds that you see on here show some of the plan changes since the HPC and the DRC meetings. We have called out the adjoiners windows, so you see that clouded here. These are the ones that would need to be, that are going to be blocked off. And then here's the window here that I mentioned is not blocked off. That would still have ventilation and daylight. Our previous plans were for a metal canopy in the front, which we presented to the HPC, but they frowned upon that and suggested a fabric awning, which we've agreed to. They suggested that we extend it all the way across the face of the building, which we've done. Here are two employee doors. Those would remain. Those are near the proposed trash enclosure, which is right here underneath the overhang of the addition. And here is the private entrance that would lead to the apartment, and also for a tailoring customer would come and check in with Marcelo or Patricia or Leonardo and be escorted up. So that door would just not be open to the public. You'd have to get an escort. And next page, please. Next page, please.
and buildings are joined, it might be too much detail, but do you seal up that, they're literally touching each other or within a half an inch or so, or, and then that little gap, do you seal it from the top so that there's no intrusion into it from? Well,
Yeah.
So do you need an agreement with your neighbor to do that, to essentially join the buildings together, right?
Well, we'd have to flash it properly.
But to touch their building, you can't touch their building and affect it without some sort of agreement, I would assume.
Well, I believe we're allowed to put our wall up to our property line. And if it is razor thin and they're touching the property line, I believe we're allowed to construct. And if a CMU block is touching a piece of their stucco, I believe that's allowed. But, you know, I don't know the answer about, yeah, I haven't got to that level of detail about what happens at the top where you flash, because that drip may overhang. I'm not sure.
It seems like, well, I guess, although we can't necessarily require it, it sure would be nice to see that there's some agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're working on correspondence with them, I guess, where we're waiting to hear back.
Well, we're trying to do it, you know, I mean, we're going to have our way to be cognizant of the neighbor, give them the additional notice, and also constructing that emergency egress to the rear, which I don't think we're obligated to do. But, you know, that issue, you know, is something we would certainly communicate with the neighbor about.
Okay. This is the second floor plan here. You see the stairwell that leads back down to the first floor and wraps around to give roof access. At the rear of this plan is the 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom dwelling unit with a den located in this rear corner. In the front is the tailoring and alteration space that we talked about. Here's a private fitting room. Here's a work area for the tailors. This is a kind of a lounge area with lots of mirrors to show to try on wedding gowns with your bridal party or your mom or whoever. And here's the kitchenette. Like Marcelo said, just to provide coffee service and beverages for people if they're there for a little bit.
So I just want to make sure I understand what I'm seeing here. So on the first floor plan, there's a second door that leads to the stairwell that I assume the tenant would have a key to.
Right.
Then you come up the stairs, and if you turn right, you have a door that goes into the dry cleaner's property, into that little kitchenette area. But then if you go straight, there's a door that would be the tenant only, and it gets to the apartment.
That's right.
I'm understanding it correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then there's another door here next to that tenant door, which is Marcello's new and improved office that's so much bigger than what he's used to. That is accessed off the hallway, so there's really kind of 3 doors there. And yeah, the tailoring area here would have its own private washroom, and we're proposing for Marcello's office to have a private washroom as well. Next slide, please. So on the roof, we have a new green area for the enjoyment of the applicant and or possibly the resident. And possibly patrons, depending on what Marcello chooses. The solid parapet at the rear is 42 inches tall at the equipment screen area, and the equipment screen here and the metal railings that show the plantings all match that height. We proposed some potted trees in the southwest corner and interesting perimeter plantings behind the railings in these 2 areas. We originally wanted a glass railing with plantings behind, but HPC frowned on that, so we've changed the design to take their comments into consideration.
I thought we'd wanted a solid parapet, period.
Yeah, we made this piece solid, and we kept railings in between here and here. But this is solid. This all is solid from there to there, and this corner chunk.
What about the front on Lorraine?
This is not solid, and this is not solid. It's
Isn't
metal
that what
rail
we
now.
specifically referenced at the meeting, was to make that solid and to make it blend in more with the neighborhood?
Right. Yeah, I think that was the HPC recommendation, and
Yeah.
we took all the HPC recommendations and did a few of them and are proposing what we're proposing. We've changed the windows. We can talk more when we get to elevations, because that's where all those things kind of show up.
Just to clarify, the green roof, the 3 pots there, and the pavers, how are they green? Is there any grass on the roof?
Well, this is plantings.
Yeah. Those are plants, are they potted plants, right?
Potted trees here.
Yeah. Okay.
Under pavers.
Yeah.
This is plantings.
Oh, okay.
This is plantings. This
Okay.
is
That-
plantings, which is sedum. But we've
Oh.
also got a comment that they wanted to see more green space. So I have a rendering later that shows how we can make that even more green. And the renderings will really show it. It'll show up in the PowerPoint.
The HPC had that comment?
And that may be in a DRC comment. I wasn't at that one. I had a,
I was there, I don't remember that.
oh, no? That was Paul's notes to me.
How are those,
For who? Who will use the roof?
Well, the applicant has access all the time. Depending on who the resident is, they could choose to give them access. And depending if it, I suppose if you wanted to measure someone for a tailoring upstairs on a nice day, they could bring customers up too. But definitely the applicant and everyone else is undecided, undetermined.
Tenant?
Tenant, if, depending on who the tenant is and the agreement, yeah.
well, how are those potted trees secured in inclement weather?
I guess I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, I don't think I like that hope. Can't cross our fingers and hope they don't blow over on somebody.
Big heavy pots.
Yeah.
Very heavy pots.
I mean, I suppose.
They will be
it could
secured somehow?
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
just cross our
will,
fingers?
and
Okay.
so will the furniture. There'll be an umbrella, maybe someone will put an umbrella on a table up there. It would have to be secured. Yeah.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
You want to talk about the HVC equipment? I mean,
Oh,
I think you
HVAC.
indicated it's,
Yes.
is it
so-
going to be screened from view?
Yep. Yeah, sorry, I mentioned the heights. So everything around this HVC area is 42 inches high, which will fully screen these 3 units.
Just refresh my memory, what's to the north of the building in there?
To the north, over here, what
No,
property
right,
is that?
abutting the backside of the building. Is there a house or backyard? to the
There's a
house?
backyard right here, and then there's a mixed-use
It's a
building.
mixed use.
Is that the Realtor?
No, the Realtor's next to that,
Oh,
the
okay.
other side of that. This is a,
PE security.
Oh, that's
PE
Security?
security.
Oh, okay. So it's a commercial building with a backyard?
Misuse.
I think there's a residence.
Okay.
It's set back pretty far from the property line.
Okay, next slide, please.
Just one
Yeah.
last thing on the air conditioning units.
Sure.
Per the township ordinance, they can't be connected directly to any storm sewer, house drain, water leader, other waste pipe. Just can you describe how you're complying with that? or-
Sure, yeah, we could run the condensate lines through the roof screening and empty onto the green roof system so that it could evaporate or percolate into the green roof plantings. Okay, the next floor slides are the proposed elevations. The materials that we've chose are brick to match existing, a stucco in a light brown or beige color, black windows, black storefront, and black metal railing up on the upper floor, or up on the roof. On this south elevation, to the top, you can see the tops of the potted trees and the decorative plantings behind the metal railing. The upper floor is a stucco finish with casement windows, redesigned as a response to some of the feedback we got from HPC. There are proposed LED sign lights right here under these 3 windows, which illuminate the sign. This is a 16 square foot sign, which is showing the actual existing sign to be relocated. On the next elevation on the next page, which is keep it on this one for now, there's a 31 square foot sign facing the parking lot where existing there's a 40 square foot. So the Lorraine Ave sign complies with size, but the parking lot one does not. So we've at least reduced that size in the parking lot one to help with the variance request. And here's the fabric awning that we show in lieu of the metal canopy. It was requested by HPC to extend it the full width, and we agree. We think that looks good that way. We were asked to remove a ventilation louver that was at the front. We've shown that on the rear now, which you'll see later. And here you see the new storefront with existing brick at the southeast corner and new brick on the southwest corner to match at the stair addition. The height of the roof here at the high point, the roof itself, not the parapet, so the high point of the roof there is 2410, on top of which will be pavers and plantings. And the height of the railing and the parapet there is 29 foot 6 3/4. The second floor height, which is this dashed line, there's not a dimension shown, but that is 13 foot 6. And there's a double dashed line because we're proposing to overframe the existing roof, which is something we've done in the past when we needed the tenant below or the business below to remain operational. So we are going to overframe it. We did this at 115 Watchung, which was a townhouse wine, and they were able to stay running while we built above them. So the height of the second floor is at 13.6, which is also where we've set the top of this sign. Ordinance states on wall-mounted business signs 347-110.1 that a wall sign shall be placed within the building's sign location band and shall not extend beyond the boundaries of the sign location band. If the building does not have a location band, then the top of the sign shall not exceed the height of the ground floor or 12 feet, whichever is greater. So although we are higher than 12 feet, we're within what would be the first floor, and the second floor starts up here. So we've proposed that both signs, in order to work with the awning, are allowed to be placed there and at the same height. And here's a rendered view of that southwest corner. Next page, please.
Do you have the height of the sign that faces the parking lot? The sign height?
Oh, the sign height, the oval? I probably don't have it dimensioned. I may need to get on the computer to...
Is it more than 24 inches?
Let's see if I can figure that out. If it is more than 24, we can revise it to comply.
Yeah.
We just didn't want we tried putting the same size sign here on the side, and it just looked too small, especially compared to the very prominent sign they have now, which is not very attractive. We'd like to replicate the front sign and just take the square footage that exists now and shrink it. And so I can't tell, that looks like it's more than 24 inches to me, so we could agree to reduce.
Yeah, because that's the important dimension, is
I see.
the height of the sign
Yeah.
from bottom to top. So if you could limit that to 24 inches,
Sure.
that would
And maybe we
conform
could-
to our ordinance in
Okay.
terms of that dimension.
Maybe we could change it from not being an oval if you want the text to be bigger, but. Okay.
Before you go on to the next slide or next elevation, can you talk about the lighting that's proposed within the canopy?
Yes. So we found a spec of the same model and look as these lights that illuminate the sign. We found the same company makes a wall pack that we plan to hide up underneath the awnings mounted to the wall. We had shown recessed lighting, but now when it was a metal canopy, but now we can't do that, so we need another way to illuminate. Right now, Marcelo has LED lights that illuminate the storefront that are on a timer, and I think they turn off at midnight. So we'd probably do the same thing. It's just an aesthetic accent lighting that would not contribute really to the foot candle requirements. And on the other side, we do have a metal canopy, so we would have, actually, I'll talk about those lights when I get to that slide.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay. This is the east elevation, and again, you can see the trees and the plantings overhead. That was important to Marcelo to have this, to have the green roof be visible, and that was something that came up during the HPC. They wanted us, as Mr. Graham noted, they suggested we have a solid parapet, but it was important for the applicant to have a very visible green roof, and he wanted it to be a lively environment.
But that was one of the issues that we discussed. It was determined that it was not compatible with the neighborhood historic character of the historic business district. So that was the reason why that was presented.
I
as
thought
a recommendation.
I thought the statement was that the whole aesthetic didn't fit, and it wasn't just that the
That
solid
was
parapet.
part of it, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I can read the report.
Glass, like the glass, that's what they said,
Mhm.
which is different now. Glass said, I remember it was glass.
Is there a microphone up there? Is there a?
You can talk into that one, that's fine.
As long as it's light is on.
From what I recall, it was said that there was no glass, so we changed glass to.
It was, the recommendation was that it should have been a solid parapet to match the neighborhood, the historic character of the neighborhood, but to read into the record, what the commission had said was the design is not compatible with the historic character of the Upper Montclair Historic District in the articulation of its material type, fenestration, and the relationship to adjacent buildings as defined in the Township of Montclair's Historic Design Guidelines. We said the design of the facade should be complementary to the contributing resources in the district and draw upon building features that define the character of the Upper Montclair Historic Business District. One of the primary recommendations, one of the only substantive recommendations was a solid parapet design is recommended rather than glass, and extension of the canopy across the entire front facade. So the canopy was extended across the front facade, but the solid parapet recommendation was completely ignored. So.
Well, it wasn't ignored, I think it was considered,
And it's less transparent. It's
because
not, yeah.
if in section 2 of that of the commission's report, it said the facade should be complementary to contributing resources in the district and draw upon those other resources, and that doesn't appear to be the case with the design.
Does this go back to the subcommittee?
no. I mean, I understand that comment, but just, I mean, the HPC talks about relationship to adjacent buildings, not compatible. I mean, when you're talking about adjacent buildings, you've got this, I mean, you have to look at the
In the
veggie heaven
district,
building there.
complementary to contributing resources in the district.
Well, but then it also talks about relationship to adjacent buildings.
That was
I mean,
one.
We're making substantial improvements to this building, and we've got the large veggie heaven building there, which doesn't contribute to anything in my mind historically or architecturally. And
The HPC said the same thing. We didn't have an issue with the improvements, with the second floor, with expanding, the business, the changes to the business. It was just certain design elements that did not match the character of the district. And, I would think this would be something that should be reviewed by either a subcommittee or the commission as a whole.
Well, again, HPC's role here is advisory to the board, so, I mean, it's really up to the planning board. If you want to send this back to HPC, I mean, we've designed something that we think is, reasonably compatible.
On that point, if we were to judge, how does one judge general compatibility with a district?
It's the purview of the HPC. And, we would we've made recommendations, one of them being, one of the sole ones being the solid parapet, but,
Well, okay, then how would the HPC make its judgment that a railing is not compatible?
there are
to-
design guidelines, there's national guidelines, there's a lot of resources that we pull from to discuss.
Did you
And-
consider the
and,
comfort of the occupants of the top level that might enjoy that space?
Our purview
A
is,
lot more if they could get a little light and air through a railing rather than looking at a wall?
our purview is how the character of the neighborhood is, for lack of a better word, protected by the design
Thank you.
of the building.
All right, thanks.
So let me ask you a question. Is there a way, because is it the fact that the transparent part of the parapet is glass that was an issue? Would it be different if it was some sort of ironwork or railing or something like that? That might be more complementary to what's along Valley Road? I mean, because that's the most, there's really not that much on Lorraine to draw from, but if you look on Valley Road, there might be something that they could draw from to get them the transparency that they're looking for, but to execute it in a way that might be more.
I would prefer more than just myself making that call, as just one member of the commission, which is why I would think either at a minimum the subcommittee review would be beneficial, in my estimation.
Okay. All right.
So are you completely, is the HPC completely gone off glass at all? Because it strikes me, having the glass, it's transparent, so all you're seeing are the trees and the plantings. So that seems to me that's compatible with the area.
We
just
had
seeing-
a full discussion on it. We determined it wasn't. I
Okay.
can't relitigate it at the hearing here. But I just know that it was.
It was discussed.
Was discussed, yes. So.
Okay. Also on this east
Oh, wait
elevation.
a minute, there is,
Oh, sorry.
there's not glass, the clouded document that I have has a railing on it.
Yeah, we've changed it to railing.
Yeah,
We-
so there's
as
a railing on it.
as-
So just to, what?
The HPC wants it solid.
Right. They
Solid
wanted-
parapet
Okay,
was
right.
our
Correct.
specific.
We're not-
Our specific recommendation was the solid parapet.
Okay, but right now, so the glass was removed and a railing was put on.
Right.
And we're still not in compliance with it.
It's essentially the same thing. It's just they removed the glass and put it's framed differently.
Okay. Continuing on this elevation, here you see the solid parapet that obscures the AC units right here. Also, one of the changes we had made as a result of the HPC comments was we had brick originally going all the way up the front on the front facade, and we changed it to be stucco on the second floor and brick. And we had taken a look at an option here where we continue this brick all the way to this material change here, and it didn't make it onto this elevation. We kind of forgot about it, but we would prefer that, and I think the HPC would too. But if it's going to subcommittee, they can take a look at that, and we could do that revision if it's okay to show brick here, just from here down, instead of the stucco all the way down.
I don't think you'll ever get pushback on brick.
Yeah, it's going to be much better. Okay, and then in the distance here, you see this is the extension of the stair that leads up to the roof. And here's the second wall sign that Janice was talking about that we need to make sure is 24 inches tall max. We have the same LED lights proposed right there. And here we have recessed lights under this canopy. Since these doors, there's a door, double doors here, and there's one kind of tucked around right at this corner. That would be employees only. So we propose that these lights will be controlled only by Moline Kronberg, even though this trash enclosure will be also used by the tenant. And so we will have a motion sensor that will turn on the lights in case the tenant needs to come down and bring garbage or recycling, and they can't do it in the dark. So that's our solution for that. The underside of this canopy from the high point at the rear of the property is 7.6.
Sorry, on
Yes.
the trash enclosure, the elevation shows it opening outwards, and then the other photo shows a delivery van there. How much space is between that first parking spot and the opening to the trash enclosure?
So there's a dimension further down in space 4 that shows 1'3". It's probably about that.
Okay.
1'3" from the trash enclosure to the painted stripe. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, basically, I just want to make sure if the truck is parked there, they're going to be able to get the trash receptacles out into the street.
Oh, right. So so if the van was parked overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time does your van leave for deliveries in the morning? Do they leave before the garbage van or no?
Yeah, they come on Monday.
around 10 o'clock,
So the van will be gone and that space will be open.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Those double doors, is that for bringing clothing and what have you in?
Right now, there's a big piece of equipment that's like right beyond those doors. It really wouldn't be safe. I don't know if you guys do that on purpose, or I imagine.
That was, I inherited that.
Yeah, I imagine you just load the van through those doors
Sometimes.
in the morning.
Sometimes,
Yeah, but it's not for customer use, and it's really not like
No,
good.
but in terms of if the township, for example, were to deny your request to have a loading zone in front, that would function for purposes of loading?
I think for the delivery loading, you just do it in the front door right now, right? So that's what you would do.
We've been doing it in the front.
Yeah.
That's what now.
Because you're just grabbing several racks and dropping things off in bags. It's not like you need that 6-foot wide opening to load. He's just a one-man door can accommodate what the kind of loading we're talking about.
Yeah, you don't need that much opening to load it.
Okay, next slide, please. This is the rear elevation. Here you see the 3 AC units, and here's the solid parapet in the rear. The stair tower you see here filling the alley, and it's on a structural column here. Let's see. The third window you see on the elevation here is where we've proposed to put a ventilation louver. It was shown on the storefront, and HPC did not like that look, so we found a new place that makes sense with the floor plan for that to be ventilation. And here you see the mounded grade that we proposed to, the tree is now gone, and so the grade can be leveled out for that egress path. And this is what I was talking about, where someone could be in this adjoining building and exit out. And since they can't turn right and go through the alley, we'd like to at least accommodate so someone can safely get around the back.
Does that need to be ADA accessible?
No, because it's not a public entrance or an accessible entrance, that rear. Next slide, please.
Actually, before you
Yes.
move, I just want to confirm that that existing grade line, it looks like that curb blocks flow onto the adjacent property. So just to confirm, that's going to be regraded to go out towards the parking lots. That way it drains back towards Lorraine.
Okay. You're saying to confirm that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to confirm your earlier testimony, just because we weren't initially sure of what the grading was in the back, but just based on that existing grade line, it looks like.
Yeah, based on the existing, it does pitch out towards our parking lot, and so we shouldn't level it out all the way. We should continue that pitch, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at least slightly.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, please. Here's the west elevation. This kind of talks about the constructability that you were talking about earlier. You can kind of see the outline of the Veggie Heaven building. And you see our stucco finish beyond, but it's not stucco here because you wouldn't stucco the finish you don't see. So this would be CMU, it would be stucco above, and it would need to, it would need to be detailed in such a way to prevent water intrusion and ice. Here is the underside of the stair. You can see kind of our stair layout. You can see this radon pipe. We've located where that happens, pitched it under the stair, and wrapped it around the building to get up safely to above the roof level. So this is the area someone could exit right from right here and travel towards that window and hang a left. And this is the outline of the other joiner.
Are there any requirements on distances between the discharge of a radon pipe and operable windows or doors?
Well, the discharge of the radon pipe is up above the roof. It would go all the way up to the roof and empty into the air.
Sure, and you've got looks like the top of the stairway has a door?
No, that's a dashed line of the door that exits onto the roof. We're not allowed to put a window that close onto a property line. So the windows that they have existing are against code. You can't have a window right at a property line for this reason. So no, we don't have any windows proposed anywhere near that.
Right, but there's a distance between the the discharge and the door, even though the door is on the opposite side of that stairwell. Yes?
Oh. I'm not sure what that distance is.
Air can move between them, yes?
Yes.
And is there any sort of requirement for how close those two things can be in space, regardless of if they're on the same property line or not?
I'm not sure of that distance. There probably is a regulation, but.
I would suggest looking into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So we can make that, the routing of that radon compliant, fully
Yes.
compliant, yes.
And including any other adjoining buildings, anything else that's nearby, you should look 360 degrees around
Yeah.
and up and down.
Right. Okay, next slide, please.
I just want to get a clarification on this. What is it this is a space between the door and, I missed it.
So the adjoining property's got a radon fan, so it's got some sort of contaminant, supposedly, that it's discharging into the air. And there are times where there's regulations that say, especially if you're constructing or moving it, how close it can be to an operable window, an operable door, something where somebody could come in contact with whatever's being discharged. And so I'm just asking if they've considered that. It doesn't sound like they have, and I'm suggesting they do that before they finalize these plans.
Yeah, we can look into that.
And is that an active radon pipe? Is that-
We
you don't
don't
really
know unless
know.
you've had any communications with the neighbor.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's an active radon pipe?
Yeah, it is.
It
It's
is.
active, it's being used. What was it? Veggie Heaven, before it was Veggie Heaven? Anybody remember?
Restaurants, as long as I can.
I thought so, carpet store, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Hubs, yeah, yeah. Is that dangerous?
Radon's irrespective of use.
I know, it is.
Correct.
It is irrespective
And
of use,
radon's in
but
the area.
It is in the area. okay.
Yes.
Naturally occurring.
Naturally
Okay.
occurring in the area, plus if
All
there's
over the place.
contamination in the ground, that could be another
Travels.
reason for radon fans.
Okay, this page shows some of the site improvements. We show the wall sconce we've selected and the directional downlights. Here's the lights that illuminate the sign. This is the light by the same manufacturer that we're proposing to tuck up under the awning. And here is the EV charging station we've selected tentatively. And these are the two perimeter plantings that are on the east side of the property. The evergreens here are towards the rear, and then I think there were 5 of these deciduous plantings towards the front. Here is the trash enclosure, which will be on a concrete pad, as Janice's memo stated, and it will be extended to the underside of the soffit. Next slide, please.
Just
Yes.
real quick while we're on the subjects. The new landscape plantings in the parking lot, those will be the responsibility of the owner to take care of and upkeep those?
Yes.
Okay. As far as the wall sconces and the canopy lighting, I know you had discussed previously just some of the intensity, but could you just re-expand on that? Just, I know some of it is going to be more accentual, and I just want to
Yeah.
make clear the temperature, color.
Sure. All of these lights that you see here are not contributing to the foot candles that illuminate the parking lot. That's an existing light that's on a public service pole. So these are just accent aesthetic lights that don't contribute to that. And we had called the number on the pole and got some information and did a calculation of the foot candles, and that's how we got that. But these lights here, I don't have the color temperature, but they're not contributing really to the site lighting. They're just accent. But I can gather that.
Okay. As far as the illumination in the parking lot, I know I think you had mentioned 0.4 at the property.
Yeah, there
line.
was one point metric that said 0.4, and it was in the
Okay.
rear, the very far rear. But I don't know if that was just our software that said that, or a real light reading would tell us if it maybe we comply.
Okay.
And-
You could just get confirmation. on
Sure.
Either or.
Sure.
But if it's deficient after you build it, you'll fix that?
Yeah, we'll add a supplemental light, as we'll comply with the township lighting ordinance. Next slide, please, Marcelo. This was just a study of an alternate green roof, because DRC said we should take a look at increasing the green area. It's kind of hard to make out some of these, but especially this one here. This is the existing chimney with a integrated seating, and this would be the sedum area. We're showing another almost bed within a bed with plantings, but after this rendering was done, I spoke with Paul Sionis, and he didn't think we would do that. It would probably be sedum throughout this whole area. And so this was just a study to show what it'll look like from on top of the green roof with lots of plantings and to increase the area of the sedum. So to get this more green, the wall of the HVAC enclosure just shifted to the north, which there's plenty of room to do, so we can make it more green quite easily. Next slide, please. This is just a juxtaposition so you could see how that would look. What was submitted in the drawings is the roof plan you see here, and this is the rendering of the roof plan, which you can see it has much more green. Next slide. And this is the existing and proposed streetscape. The existing ridge of Moulin-Kronberg here is 17'2". The proposed top of railing, top of parapet is 29'6" and 3/4", which is close to the height of the dental office next door. We're 29'6", where 36 feet is allowed, 3 stories allowed, and we're only 2 stories. And last slide.
Oh, before you move, on the top of the building, right there. Is that a smokestack, exhaust stack that's coming off the restaurant?
Yes, this is an exhaust.
That's right up.
No, it's an air.
It's an air vent?
It's an air vent, yeah.
So where does the restaurant vent? It's cooking. If that's just air.
I think it's on the other, it's in the back of their, it's in the back, it's in the north side. They have a ventilation towards the north.
That's what I'm looking. That's what I'm going to look right now.
It's a stack in the back. It's made out of aluminum, I believe.
Yeah, because that's what that looks like. And it's sitting up way nice and high, which is a good place for a vent from a restaurant.
No, but that's an air because it circulates.
No, well, it's elevated above the roof. Let's see. I may not really be able to see it on Google because of the way that the buildings are.
Yeah, that's it. And we're going up. That's happening right here.
That one has one of those vented.
We're going to be touching that chimney though, right there. But there's nothing there except the potted trees. That would be on the other side of the air intake. If it's intake or exhaust, I'm not sure.
Okay, we can come back to this if necessary.
Okay. Maybe you do want to go to slide 13. That does show the area the chair is talking about. Right here is where that chimney is. We don't show the outline of the aluminum on top, but where that's occurring, we would butt up next to that chimney, I'll call it, and on the other side of the ventilation is just our potted trees. So.
Yeah, but ventilation is not a problem. Cooking exhaust would. So that's what I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Okay. Last slide is just the renderings, and so I'll leave it there and turn it to Mr. Tremblay. Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yeah.
Janice?
You're right. It's wrong in the rendering there.
So
and it's updated on the elevation, so the elevation is.
So it would wrap the corner.
Yep.
Okay. I think you covered everything. I had noted in the Boswell report, I'm sure Mr. Byrne has anything else that
Just
we
one or two
didn't
minor
address.
things. I know it was briefly mentioned much earlier about the van operating, using the loading space out front, assuming it's approved and everything. What hours would that just be during business hours, or?
What hours would the van be parked?
Yeah.
it would be after business hours, and, right, it would be like,
Can't get closer.
what time does your delivery van come back, and what time does he leave in the morning, I guess?
8, he leaves at 8, comes back, well, he comes back a couple of times a day, but then, you know.
To park at like 5 or 6?
But the loading space would be restricted from, normal parking during business hours.
Right, that would be restricted to only the van, and just for the brief moments that he's coming for a refill on deliveries, right? Yeah.
But that's a good question. Then that loading dock area is available for people to park after, say, 6 o'clock, right? And the
That's
sign
usually
would
the
say
case with
that,
loading
yeah.
spaces.
Does the sign say that, or people have to know it by osmosis?
They never say that,
Yeah.
unfortunately. People think they can't park there
Yes,
at 10 o'clock
exactly.
at night, which
Yeah.
they can, because I think the ordinance says
Right.
restricted
Till
for
6
loading,
or
I
7.
think, till 6 o'clock.
That would depend on what the township decides the sign should say. Yeah.
Another thing was, I don't think this will come into play, but just, can you confirm the area of disturbance and just, comply with any SED requirements, assuming that comes into play?
Yeah, definitely. I can do the calculation. There's the milling. I can't do the calculation on the spot, but we know the milling will be about 12 inches, and both the addition for the stair and all the perimeter plantings will be like 3 feet. So I can calculate the cubic yards of disturbance.
Okay. And then just one last thing, assuming that the ADA space is approved, it will comply with all of the necessary regulations and everything and be ADA compliant.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Joe, are there any other aspects of the report, the Boswell report, that have not been covered?
No, I believe every point has been covered.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
I had one brief question. Based on the image in picture 3, it seems we're eliminating some bike parking from the alley. There's a bike in one of the photos. Thought that was going to get a chuckle.
We respect you.
I think it'd be great to put a secure bike storage location for the tenant or for an employee who may want to hop on 2 wheels to get to work, whether that's in the small covered area or out front, but somewhere well lit so that someone can comfortably place their bike securely.
Yeah. We do have tenant storage on the second floor plan, a large area at the top of the stair that a bike could fit in. That's
something on the ground level.
You want something
would
on the
be
ground level, yeah.
Preferable. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually one last thing that needs a check mark. Just as far as existing utilities should be mapped out in case any upgrades to service are required. I know that you said
Sure.
the intensity wasn't being, the intensity of the
Altered,
business
yeah.
itself wasn't being increased, but with the apartment, there might be unnecessary, changes to the utility services going into the building.
Sure.
And, road opening permit would be required for the same, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to ride to work, there is on the east side. So there is between the double doors there is park. They could park 2 bicycles there, and
Yeah.
they could come to work.
So long
of
as
course.
there's somewhere for them to lock them up, somewhere well
Yes.
lit to keep them secure.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
I have no further questions for Mr. Robertson.
Further questions from the board? We've been asking you questions all along. What about the public? Anybody in the public have any interest in asking this witness any questions concerning his testimony? Looks like we're clear there. Okay, Mr. Tremulik?
Just briefly, talk about the parking variance, and we've got a business that has been in the Upper Montclair Business District for over a century. Like most, this building actually has more on-site parking than most buildings you have on Valley Road or Bellevue Avenue or on the small areas of Lorraine that adjoin Valley Road.
Mr. Chumbuck, not to interrupt you, but I will. What about around the corner? Is it Oakwood Street? Is that what's around the corner? Like, what's the parking like on there? Is it 2-hour parking? Is it not unrestricted? Oakwood.
I don't think that's restricted. It might be.
Yeah, it might be 2 hours.
It might be, but it's a fair distance to go back.
It is. Most people be on Lorraine.
Yeah, but I'm just
Lorraine
saying,
or
if there is parking in the area. It's just.
Oh, yeah.
You can park on Lorraine,
Well, but I'm
too.
just talking about
Yeah.
on-site parking for existing businesses, which there's very little, all along Valley Road, and we have more than most. And there is, just to talk, there is available public parking in the lot, whatever the lot is called, behind the Montclair Diner. And then you have also on-street parking on Bellevue Avenue that doesn't come all the way up to our property, but is very close on both sides of Lorraine Avenue. But, we're basically maintaining the same number of spaces, if not adding an additional space to what currently exists. And the business has functioned with that number of parking spaces for many years. And we believe it will continue to function. In fact, I think it'll function better. It's a better configuration for the parking, more safer. We're going to designate spaces. We're going to have the 3 customer spaces for people to come in and out. And if there's ever an overflow, there should be parking nearby to handle it. A business is operated in this manner with this relatively small parking lot for many, many, many years. And what we're doing here, I think, is improving the building, substantially improving the site with additional landscaping and other improvements that are good for the neighborhood. We may not have satisfied all of HPC's concerns. We've tried to address them. I mean, the one thing I would note, we're comparing, buildings, the existing buildings built in the 1920s or early 1900s, and they didn't have green roofs back then. And this building has a very attractive green roof with landscaping, seating areas up there. And I think it's appropriate to have, that open somewhat. You can't, we've tried to, build the building in appreciation and recognition for the historic district. But as I said before, we're right next door to the Veggie Heaven building, which is, fairly unattractive stucco. I think it's unfair where we're, improving this property, improving the neighborhood, and maybe not doing everything HBC would like, but we think it's a well-designed building. We've tried to address all of the township reports, and I think the parking variance is justifiable for the reasons I mentioned, and I would hope that the board would approve this application as presented, subject to the various conditions we've discussed throughout the hearing.
Ladies first.
By all means.
The only lady here. Yeah, I think this is a great application. I think they've done a really nice job doing the design work. I think the parking is, as we talked about, there's plenty of parking really in the area. You might have to walk a half a block or so, but so what? I think they've done their best to try to accommodate their workers and their van and their the vehicles they use on site. And it's a big improvement, and I would encourage people to vote for it.
Before we go any further, just want to make sure that there's nobody in the public here who wants to comment on this application. Just want to make sure.
I'm here.
Oh, so,
I
okay.
think we have someone here. Did you want to speak?
Well, not necessarily. I think it's a terrific application.
Come on up.
Just come up and. Your name, please, sir?
David St. Ledger. I'm the owner of Upper Montclair Dental Associates, 223 Lorraine Avenue. They're business neighbors. So, no, I didn't plan on speaking, but I will tell you that I think it's a wonderful application. I will respectfully disagree with what maybe HPC says about the top of the building. I think it's beautiful. I think it's attractive. I think it's incredibly complementary to my building and to that area. There's a lot of parts of Valley Road that are, been there a long time. I've been there almost 30 years, basically, and I've seen a lot of things come and go. And yes, Veggie Heaven is not the most attractive building. Mercado is a beautiful building, but it doesn't necessarily fit in the historic plans of Upper Montclair. But it suits everyone just fine. So I just would like you guys to consider the application as it stands. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably anybody else?
I don't think there's anybody else left. Just want to make
Clients,
sure.
family members could speak.
I would just like to say that we did consider the eclectic nature of the historic business district. Mercado was specifically referenced. And I just think there is always a compromise to be had. I was just a little surprised at how exactly the same the parapet was compared to the last rendering we saw. So I would still would like to have some kind of subcommittee review, discussion, some kind of HPC input. But overall, I agree that it is an improvement to the district. I agree this is a good project. I agree that it can function with the parking it has for years and will continue to do so with this change. I just think that there should be some additional consideration given to the HPC's comments.
Is it just the parapet, or is it more than that?
The design did change significantly, not significantly. I mean, there were brick going up to the top before. There was, the parapet was one of the primary recommendations that we noticed and discussed. But I think a subcommittee review is not as intrusive as a full commission review, and it can be done at everybody's convenience. And I just think it's warranted.
Only thing that troubles me about this application is the HPC's comments. That said, I like the design of the building. I was going to ask about expanding the brick around the side of the parking lot. I think that always makes sense. We don't pay attention to the sides of buildings and the backs of buildings like we should all the time. And I just wonder, as you can tell from my earlier questions, whether or not there was a way to do a compromise to get maybe some more detail. I kind of looked while we were talking, I did the Google looking up and down Valley to see what the tops of buildings look like. And either they're very sterile, which is what I think the solid parapet would be, or they have some old style detailing, maybe along the top, a cornice, or the Saunders building is interesting, caught my eye because it's a solid front, but it has relief done with the brick, so that there's relief in squares. And I kind of imagine those squares being holes, empty. And maybe there's a modern way to interpret it so that it would enhance the historical environment of the Upper Montclair district, but at the same time, creating something new and something more modern. So wondering if there was a way to tweak the design. I looked, there's a portico on the back of the Williams-Sonoma building that has a little bit of detail, and it has a railing sitting along the top of it. And maybe there was a way to do something like that. I think the space is a good idea so that you can see all these plantings on the roof. And also so that it doesn't, people on the roof aren't feeling like they're sitting inside a box. You know, they have a little bit of a view. So, you know, with that said, I would like to encourage, but I don't know that I want to require, you know, a review, but I'd like to encourage maybe a little tweaking of that top line, maybe make it a little bit more detailed. Not a whole lot, not you know, not a grand, you know, styling, but you know, maybe a little bit more detail, just to add a little bit more flair above the top to reflect some of the other cornices in the district, and maybe that would be enough of a compromise to give, but still leaving the cutouts. And maybe interpreting, if there's a way that they could be interpreted a little different way. But again, I'd like to encourage, but I don't think I want to require that they, if the owners of the property can't come up with something that they think is attractive in doing that, then, you know, I would let it settle the way that it's depicted on the renderings with the curve at the corner, bringing the wall around, because I noticed that too. You know.
With the railing or the glass? I'm not sure.
Well, I think the railing again scales it back. If they've changed it to the railing, it does bring it back a little bit more, makes it a little less modern, a little more classic, so to speak. And you know, and maybe it's a combination of the railing and adding a little bit of detail along the edge so that it flares out a little bit, or so that it's not such a straight, you know, that could create that organic, you know, new interpretation of the old, of the classic, you know. You see it all the time in buildings, you know, where they pick up on older buildings, but they give it a modern interpretation. So it's not identical, but you're incorporating elements. And I think that's kind of what the Historic Preservation Commission was going for. Wants the incorporation, and they're not against new, they're not against modern, but they want to pick up the cues from some of the historic buildings that are around it. And yeah, there's a couple of really sterile boxes that are sprinkled in, but there's some really, you know, beautiful buildings too. So if you could bring a little bit more of that flavor, you know, but otherwise I don't have a problem with the application at all. I think it's good.
Just to address that, we'd be happy to sit down with the HPC subcommittee and see if we can do some tweakings that would, you know, satisfy them and that we can live with, and do that essentially on a voluntary basis.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
I think it would be a benefit to everyone.
I'm telling you, we're willing to do that, to try to, you know, come up with something that everybody likes, including the HPC. So.
We appreciate that, and obviously we'll schedule whenever it's convenient for everyone.
Okay.
Anybody else? Not, I'd like to make a motion, you know, that we approve the application with the tweaks that we've discussed that aren't reflected on the drawings, that the drawings are going to have to be updated. And that what I would ask, if the applicant, once the applicant talks to the HPC, that they just give us notice of what they've decided in terms of you know, how the building is going to go forward, so that at least our revisions committee can take a look at it and see. But I don't want to make it subject to revisions committee approval, because I want the parties to work it out. And you know, at the end of the day, I want the owners to be satisfied with the way that the property looks.
But you need final drawings, right?
But we do need the drawings updated. We do need the final drawings as to what's agreed to and how it's going to be. So those are kind of the reservations that we need. I don't think we need any other, do we have any conditions? We've got conditions.
We do.
Sarah, please help out here.
So the loading space and the handicap space, approval by the township in front of the town. That's going to be a condition of the.
What if they deny it?
Pardon?
What if they deny it?
Well, that's.
Then we'll be back. I don't think we
Well,
have, I mean.
Oh, we can't do that.
Well, I like it.
No, because I don't think that they, from what I've heard, the police department and the engineer's office do not recommend putting a handicap or a loading space in front of this building. because
Yeah,
of traffic
I
flow.
was going to comment on that because the traffic going to the west needs a couple of lanes. There's a left turn lane there on Valley, so I think that if you put a permanent space out there, you'll pinch the traffic, and I think that's probably consistent with what they feel.
I'm putting that out there because I'm thinking it's highly unlikely that that will get approved.
Both the loading zone and the handicap
And they
space?
hit both of them.
What about just loading zone?
That I don't, we just talked about it, and I don't think there's any support to put it at that location because of the traffic flow.
Yeah, it's tight, but they use it as not necessarily you all, but the building next door uses it as a loading zone.
They do, but it's not a loading zone.
I agree.
I think though, and I think for the purposes, for practical purposes, the parking lot can pick up the slack on the loading zone. Because it's not long-term parking.
Right.
So if the truck is a little bit on the sidewalk while they're putting stuff in it, I think you can still back most of that truck up behind the
Right.
spaces that are there, so.
Yeah, so to be clear, I don't think we're proposing to make a condition that there has to be a loading zone there.
Right,
Yeah.
right, we don't want
Okay.
that.
You know, again, it's something where we encourage you to pursue it, but, you know, if you can't get it, we understand the limitations.
You're right. It's just,
I have a couple of others, that the applicant shall reduce the height of the sign on the side to comply with the ordinance. The applicant shall bring the brick from the front to the side, I guess that's the east side, I guess to the level of the first floor. Is that what we're?
Or are you gonna bring it to like the level of the cutout that's in the back?
Yeah, the level of the
That
material
make-
change.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And I may not say this correctly, Keith, but you're going to make the routing of the ventilation discharge onto the adjoiner's building compliant with all applicable regulations. Does that work?
Works for me.
Yeah.
That okay by you?
Yep.
You're going to comply with the ordinance on lighting in the parking lot? I'm not at all clear on whether or not we're going to require a bike rack on the side.
I'd like to. Yeah.
Okay. The applicant will update the drawings and then present to the revisions committee after you've met with HBC. And that presentation is not for purposes of requiring any change, just so that we're aware, or at least the revisions committee is aware of what has changed.
Should we also add something in about requiring rooftop plantings be secured? Since a couple of trees are supposed.
Plantings, fixtures. What was that?
He said cows, but he meant couches. And I think that does it, right?
That's all I have.
So that's the motion, guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any committee reports?
I think we have to kind of decide what we're doing with regard to the letter that's been bouncing around. I don't think we have to go into executive session for that. I think we shouldn't go into executive session on that, actually. Let me
I
amend.
saw the last emails from
Tony.
This is regarding
Tony.
just to clarify, this is regarding indemnification.
Right.
Yeah.
From Tony and from Bill Harris. Yeah, all of those comments, I think, were good. And
clarification. I mean, it sounds, I mean, just to be clear for the record, so what's going on is that the board has across several meetings discussed the advisability of asking the council formally to amend the indemnification ordinance to clarify that it covers members of the planning board, certainly, and while they're at it, there's no reason why it shouldn't also cover members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Historic Preservation Commission, even though they're somewhat less likely to be named in suits than we are. We propose specific language, and thanks to Mr. Annuali's suggestion, we should advise the council that there are ways to do it right, and that many of our neighboring towns do it the way we want. And you know, so somebody needs to take the drafting pen now to just take the letter that Ms. Lockman drafted, that I revised, that Mr. Neese revised, that there have been some other comments too, and that Tony came up with some excellent suggestions to add. Carmel, if you don't mind, I mean, if you can.
I mean, I think I would work with your.
Yeah, or work with Art's draft.
Yeah, I don't mind adding, reference to what Tony has put in as well.
Yeah, no, work with Art's draft, put in.
Or unless you want to do it.
It's fine by me, whatever you want.
Okay, it's easier to edit out, I know.
And
okay,
then I can take a look at it before it goes, and
yeah.
then what we'll do is we'll circulate it back to the zoning board and the HPC to confirm that because this isn't something that the chairs ought to decide on their own. Every member ought to decide whether they want to attach their name to this, and then there will be a transmitter. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter who it is because all of us are going to attach our names to it, and then I suggest that, when it's ready, we pick a date that there's a council meeting when a number of us can attend, not for the purpose of everybody speaking for 3 minutes, but just as a little bit of a show of force.
Support.
Solidarity.
Yeah.
All of those. I don't withdraw my characterization, but I accept the amendments. And we should, somebody should then just kind of, I think we're doing it in the spirit of friendship. We're going to tell the council what we're doing, and then we come and we just make a quick comment, and we, assuming unless they told us that they're putting it on the agenda without our needing to be there, I think we go and tell them what we're about, and in a very friendly way say, this is something you should do.
I think when the draft is done, I think it's a good idea to mention the towns that have the Verona ordinance,
yes,
but then
absolutely.
only present the language from Verona and Glen Ridge.
Yep.
They're almost consistent, and it's probably the better language of the
Yeah, that's
five.
great.
And they have the benefit of being our neighbors.
And they're right, they're one's on one side, one's on the other.
That's right.
Okay, so I agree. I will take a first stab at this if you send me your Word version of what you have, okay?
Be happy to.
And then I'll pass it to you and
Yeah.
Jeff, and then we'll distribute something to the whole group. Is that
Although
correct?
Yeah.
I do think I did send you the word.
Do I have a Word version? I don't, yeah, maybe, okay. If I don't, I'll be in touch.
Councilor Terry, there's certainly no expectation that you should or could even sign this. I mean, we're going to ultimately be asking this of you. So, I mean, we appreciate your support, and, we're doing this because those of us that are thinking we're naked here are seeking to be clothed.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and plus there are surrounding towns that are involved here. My question to you is, why would you not include Bloomfield also?
Well, Bloomfield is, they don't have as broad, well, what I said before is that mention to the council that those towns have an ordinance, but when that protects volunteers and others, it's broad. But the language that's used for Bloomfield and Verona is specifically good quality.
Glen Ridge.
I'm sorry,
Glen Ridge and
Verona is,
I think we
The
mentioned
most
all the
comprehensive,
towns, all the
yeah.
other towns that
mention
we
the
found.
towns, but just
Yeah, yeah.
present the language.
Yeah, all right, I got it. So, does everybody agree with this? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you to the drafters who've been working on this.
Excellent work.
Yes.
Excellent work.
Any other reports?
Nothing from me.
May I ask a question? Is the town self-insured? Is
Uh,
that complicated?
I can't answer it.
Oh, sorry.
On that topic, though, there was a brief note in the League of Municipalities magazine. They had like an advice Q&A thing, and there are some circumstances where municipal insurance will cover board volunteers. So that may be kind of a back end for legal protection. It's obviously specific to the municipality and the insurance policy they have, but it's definitely something that ought to be looked into or considered in all this.
Sure.
I just did want to say, new topic. We received a report from the Housing Commission about I don't know, their recommendations for the housing element, if that's the correct way of saying it. But I
Well, to
didn't
be incorporated in the master plan reexamination
Yes,
report.
yeah. And so, but I wanted to say, I read that, and maybe you all did as well, but I think they're kind of missing the bigger point of what we need to be doing, which I think is we're coming up with the new fair share housing, allotment or allocation, or what we have to have in our plan. So I think that should really be the focus of for us for the next year, not.
I think that's what their recommendation is.
Yeah, but they had other stuff as well, and I think it's up to the planning board to do that, not necessarily the housing commission.
I think you need
which
to
is my
work
point.
in conjunction, because the Housing Commission's responsible for oversight of our, essentially our affordable housing programs.
Right.
And they can give you valuable information on what's working, what's not working, and how our spending plan is being, the money's in our spending plan is being expended.
Well, I think that a lot of that information is in your office, isn't it, Janice? I'm not so sure.
I'm the municipal housing liaison. I administer all of it.
Right.
I work closely with the Housing Commission, and they do have a wealth of experience. And just like you like to be recognized for the expertise you have, I think they like to be recognized for the expertise they have as well.
Okay? But I think, just from a planning board's perspective, that we need to focus on the next round of housing
Well, it's a multi-step.
requirements.
It's a multi-step
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, that's going to happen really quickly. If that bill
We
were
don't
passed.
even know what our numbers are going to be.
If you looked at the calendar for the COA, what do we call it? I don't know, Fair Share
Absolutely,
Housing thing.
Carmel, I'm on top of it.
Yeah.
I have the 90 pages of proposed regulations.
Yep.
I have the judge's decision from Middlesex County outlining how we're supposed to do it, but you can't do it until, you can't do
master
the
guide tells you-
calculations
yeah.
until you have the estimates that are done by an outside
I
entity.
understand that, right.
Okay.
I'm just advising the planning board that this is coming down the pike, and it's something that we're going to have to be aware
I
of.
think it's exactly what the Housing Commission report says, that we need to get prepared.
Don't take my putting on my coat as disinterested in this subject.
No.
Except that's what it is. Bills.
You didn't pay bills yet, Jeff. You gotta,
He's going to do that in 5 seconds.
Well, I did review the bills, and I would move to approve them.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Done. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you all.